Tola City Council meeting. I apologize for us starting late tonight, but we welcome your presence here and your emails and your phone calls, and please keep them coming. We get some of our best ideas from the citizens out there, things we've never thought about, and we're always looking for ways to improve and do things better. So please keep contacting us about things. So maybe we have the roll call, please.
Councilmember Norton.
Here.
Councilmember Story.
Here.
Councilmember Bottorff.
Here.
Councilmember Termini.
Here.
Mayor Harlan.
Here. Will everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have 2 presentations tonight. Steve, are you going to start? Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Steve Jesberg, your Public Works Director. I am happy to be here tonight to introduce Steve Deans to our Public Works crew. Steve is fulfills our crew vacancies we've had for the past year. Steve comes to us with an extensive experience on working on heavy equipment. Steve spent this past summer working for us as a seasonal work. He's worked the Wednesday night concerts. He's worked the Begonia Festival, Art and Wine Festival. And he comes to us with strong recommendations from the crew superintendent and crew worker. So with that, I'd like to welcome Steve and introduce him to you. Steve?
Welcome, Steve.
Thank you very much. Just like to say it's a blessing to be here, and I'm very proud to work for this city. And I'll give you my best every day.
Thank you very much. It's great
Thank you.
to have you.
And if I could add, I'd just like to add that Steve and the previous employee we hired came to us. We had a recruitment. We had 162 applicants. And
Wow.
Steve and Jesse were the top 2 out of that. So I think we've done very well. Thank you, Council.
Congratulations. That's wonderful. The next, we have the oath of office for Christine McBroom, City Treasurer.
A drum roll.
Good evening. Welcome.
Okay.
Face this way.
This way?
Yeah, this way. And I'll start, and then I'll hand it to you. Hi, Christine. Thanks for coming tonight. And I'm going to give you the oath of office. So if you repeat after me. And raise your right hand.
Okay.
I, Christine McBroom,
I, Christine McBroom,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith
that I will bear true faith
and allegiance
and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I'm about to enter.
upon which I'm about to enter.
Thank you very much for volunteering for this highly paid technical job. It has many other rewards, though. Okay, the next item is the report on closed session for Mr. Barasoni, please.
Thank you, Mayor Harlan. The items that were discussed in closed session this evening are listed on the first page of the Council's posted agenda. We only had one item listed. It was our labor negotiations, and Lisa Murphy, who is acting as the city's labor negotiator, reported on her ongoing negotiations with the police management bargaining unit, the police captains, and she provided the council with a status report, and the council gave her instructions with regard to those ongoing negotiations. There's no other reportable action out of closed session. Council also had a very, very brief performance evaluation of the city manager, and again, there was no reportable action on that. And that's the end of my oral report.
Thank you very much. Are there any additional materials? We have some copies of some emails that we received. Then additions to the agenda, deletions from the agenda. And then we'll go on to, Jamie, when did you want to make your announcements? At the end or at the beginning?
Madam Mayor, I can make them now if you'd like, or during the City Council Treasurer, City Staff comments.
Oh, we'll get down to that, yes. Okay, now's the time for public comments. If anyone would like to address us on anything that's not on the agenda, you're welcome to come up for 3 minutes. If you want to speak on an item that's on the agenda, please wait till we get to it, and you'll be allowed to speak at that time. We welcome your comments. Good evening.
Good evening. Mayor Harlan, you just said you're always looking for ways to improve and do things better. And I've been suggesting that for years, is removing the harm of the wireless microwave technology from wireless internet and other sources. That would make it better, healthier for everyone. I want to recommend a DVD I just got. It's called Take Back Your Power, and it's investigating the smart grid. You can also see it online at takebackyourpower.net. I'll be ordering more copies, and here are some of the comments here. It says utility companies are replacing electric, gas, and water meters worldwide with a new generation of smart, and these are microwave radiation emitting meters, at unprecedented rates. Take Back Your Power investigates the benefits and risks of this ubiquitous smart grid program with insight from, what does this say? Insiders, experts, researchers, politicians, doctors, and environmentalists. Transparency advocate Josh Del Sol takes us on a journey of revelation and discovery as we question corporate practices which tap our private information and erode our rights in the name of green. Josh Del Sol, the filmmaker, will be interviewed on Your Own Health and Fitness, kpfa.org, next Tuesday, the 1st of October at 1 o'clock. And two highlights of this film. One, a researcher shows blood cells of 3 subjects before exposure to a smart meter and after. All 3 had abnormalities in the clumping of the blood cells after the microwave radiation exposure to the smart meter. Only one person felt it, had a severe migraine, and had to be removed within a minute from the meter exposure. The other 2 didn't feel it, but had blood abnormalities showing in the blood sample, which indicates everyone is affected, whether you're aware of it or not. Another part in here showed a cancer cluster at San Diego State University around a campus cell tower, and a mother interviewed whose son died of a brain tumor. There were about 12 cases. I know of someone here who lived in Capitola, the stone near the cell tower at Claire's and Capitola Road. She died of a brain tumor. Studies around the world indicate ill health, increased cancer incidence, sleep disturbances, memory loss, etc. So we can anticipate that this is a consequence everywhere. Now, there's this new broadband connectivity and expansion, which basically means turning utility poles into cell towers. So whereas a network before needed 5 cell towers in a distance, now they need 100. These are being approved in the county. The city here was told doesn't track this. These are very intense radiation emitters for the 4G technology that's resulted in the death of birds and scorched trees and countless illnesses, and the takeover of our public right-of-way where these utility poles are located. If someone here, this really needs to be opposed, you know many of us are already electromagnetically injured. A good friend of yours who was on the Art Commission, you're well aware, many more people will be injured. If someone on the council wants to borrow this, I only have this one copy right now, overnight, and I could get it back tomorrow, I'd lend it to you. It's very compelling and well done and astonishing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think that's yours. Okay.
Good evening.
Mayor Harlan and City Council members, I'm Sharon Saris. I'm the founder and co-chair of the Monterey Bay Electric Vehicle Alliance. And first of all, I want to thank you as a city and your leadership before in having the charging station installed, both of them, and installed in the upper lot. And I wanted to let you know and your audience know that this Sunday at the Staff of Life parking lot in Santa Cruz is our second time we've held National Plug-in Day there. It's an event that's held the same weekend all over the country with almost 100 different cities involved this coming Saturday and Sunday. So ours is Sunday from 1 to 4 in the Staff of Life parking lot. More than 20 models of electric plug-in vehicles. We even have a little Segway demonstration as a type of electric transportation, as well as charging station company and ChargePoint, who manages is the brand that you have here in the parking lot, and then 3 solar companies making the point that solar on residential is just like a perfect combination with charging your vehicle at home. So thank you again for your leadership, and I hope that you might be able to stop by. A big raffle this time, Tesla jackets, etc. So it should be, again, a great event and a good way to educate many people, including test drives that Ecology Action is offering, both some rides, such as the Tesla, but also the ability to drive various Toyota products, Ford products, Nissan Leafs, etc., to really experience it on about a 15-minute test ride. So thank you for your support, and hope to see you on Sunday.
Thank you very much. Anyone else like to speak? Then we'll go on to City Council comments. Sam.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I wanted to announce that actually a week ago from last Wednesday, the Monterey Bay Air Quality Control Board awarded grants. These are called the AB 2766 grants to local jurisdictions, and I'm glad to announce that the City of Capitola received a grant for $15,000 for a zero motorcycle, which would give us the ability to have electric motorcycles here in Capitola, kind of on a test basis. They are very maneuverable, they're quiet, stealth, so to speak. And so I think we were pleased to provide that grant. And there also will be going to one to the City of Scotts Valley, one to the City of Watsonville, and one to UCSC. So thank you, Mayor.
Dennis?
I'm fine, thank you.
Ed?
Nothing.
Michael?
I have a couple of things. First of all, I've been to the first National Plug-in Day. It's a great event. I highly recommend it. And rather than raffle off Tesla jackets, let me know when they're raffling off a Tesla. So, and secondly, just a quick note, I met with a couple of citizens this week, and I'm happy to report, I'm glad I have a lot of citizens for the Commission on the Environment out there, that what was considered white paint for the Martin Cultural Commission was actually aerosol chalk. It's non-toxic, it's water-soluble, it washes off as limestone into the waterways. So we did some research on that one. And that's it.
Thank you. I don't have any. Are there staff comments?
Council members, there's a couple announcements I would like to make. The first is a congratulatory note, and we will do a little bit of a presentation on this at a future council meeting, is that the city and our finance department received a GFOA award, which is the Government Finance Officers Association of America award for excellence for our CAFR, for our annual financial report. And this is a big deal report. I know we've received awards in the past, but this is the top honor, and we do hope that someone's going to be able to come out and give this award to our finance department at a future meeting. In addition, I just wanted to report to the council that we have begun to close the books. We're almost wrapped up closing the books on last fiscal year. The news is relatively positive for the city. Overall, our revenues exceeded expenditures by a little bit over $600,000. That was comprised of about $200,000 of excess revenue. Sales tax and TOT performed beyond budget expectations, and about $400,000 on the savings side, which was primarily due to some vacancies in key positions, lower than anticipated overtime expenses in the police department, as well as some contracts that ultimately weren't used in the fiscal year. So you will see a more in-depth report on this on your next agenda item, next council agenda, but I just wanted to report, give a brief summary of where we stand financially. And I think we have a staff update from community development as well.
Thank you very much. Are there any?
I'm sorry.
Staff, please go ahead.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. I did want to report briefly on the latest updates on the Monarch Cove Hotel Expansion Project. Today marked the end of the EIR scoping comment period. We received lots of comments from residents and citizens up on the Hill and elsewhere in the city. There has been some confusion on the process, though. For just the sake of clarity, I would like to point out that the EIR comment period was simply to scope the analysis of the environmental impact report. We have not begun drafting it yet. What we're going to do is collect those comments we've received, evaluate them, and then help define the analysis that the report will look at. We expect that the draft EIR will be prepared for circulation to the public in the fall or winter of 2013. Following that, there would be a minimum of a 45-day public review period where the public will have another opportunity to send comments to the city on the contents of the EIR. And then, of course, the project would be presented for the Planning Commission, which we tentatively slate for late winter 2014, so probably February, March timeframe. Thank you.
I have a question, staff, Madam Mayor. Did we record either video or audio of the citizens meeting from Monarch Cove and the EIR?
It was not recorded. We did have 3 people taking notes of the meeting, and we copied all the comments, and in addition to that, took letters from people.
Okay. It might be a nice idea, maybe next time, even just audio recording. It would help council who wasn't able to attend or didn't attend.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Really quick, I'd just like to tell the council and the community that construction of the Lower Pacific Cove parking lot will begin next week. The contractor will be mobilizing and kind of getting going next week, and then really starting it the week of October 7th. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Other staff comments?
I have a couple.
Yes.
We have some openings on committees and commissions. One is the Capitola Finance Advisory Committee, because Christine McBroom, who was the former chair of the Finance Advisory Committee, and she will continue to be on the committee as the city treasurer, but that leaves an opening for a business representative. So if anyone has any interest to contact us, and we can mail them an application. The application is available on the website, and we will forward the information to Tony Castro, who will make the recommendation for the chamber. And we also have an opening on as a Capitola representative to the County of Santa Cruz Hazardous Material Advisory Commission. So if anyone's interested, please contact City Hall.
Good, thank you. I was on that many years ago, and I thought it was very interesting. It's a really good group. Are there any treasurer comments tonight?
I just wanted to say I'm really excited to be given this opportunity, and it means a lot to be appointed, and I'm honored and just wanted to say thank you. So, yeah.
Thank you very much for doing
Madam
that.
Treasurer, is your husband aware that part of his family responsibility is to sit through every council meeting now?
Bye, Rory.
He's making an exit.
And do we have a photograph of our treasurer in the place of honor over the water fountain yet?
Oh, we should have that.
We should have our treasurer's picture over the traditional treasurer water fountain spot.
On his way.
Excellent.
I wanted to make one little report. I attended the annual League of California Cities conference last week in Sacramento. They alternate it between Northern California and Southern California. And they always have a lot of really good workshops. They always have a lot of really good speakers. The governor actually used to come in and speak every year, but that hasn't happened for a number of years. But as last year, a lot of the sessions were on economic development because we're seeing a change in the economy a little bit in some areas, and in some areas they're really not. They're still having tremendous challenges. So I'll report on one of these at each of our meetings. This was called the Future of Sales Tax. As I said, the aging of the state's population and emergence of the Y generation is shifting more disposable income to services and non-taxable purchases. The growing ease of e-commerce via smartphones, tablets, mobile wallets, and new social networking technology moves remaining taxable sales to centralized distribution warehouses. Details new trends and strategies to align sales tax revenues through the end of this decade. So what we ought to do if we're smart is buy some land in the Central Valley and put a distribution center up there because they're going to get all that sales tax. Anyway, the speakers were Paul Arvalo, the city manager of West Hollywood, Lloyd DeLemus, executive chair of Hindlitter, DeLemus and Associates, and Annette Nelson, a professor in graduate tax program, San Jose State. It was very, very interesting. Paul, as a city manager, said that their population is 34,000, and nighttime population can be 80,000 to 100,000. So I thought we had some similarities there. That the average age is 25 to 44. Their primary sources of revenue are 20% TOT, their parking fees, sales tax 17%, property tax 17%. They have 1,400 hotel rooms. They also have a big Jaguar dealership. They're planning a new Walgreens, and it's going to have a pharmacy, sushi, food court, and all kinds of other things in it, because what's happening now, the trend is sort of one-stop shopping. Go someplace, and you can get do a lot of your shopping in that store. They have, there was a Laurel hardware store that was turned into a restaurant, and rather than changing the name and the ambience of it, they just left the name, the Laurel Hardware Restaurant, and because everybody loved the old building, and they did remodel it, but they're reusing it for that. They have a Craig's restaurant that's open from 5 to 8, and they have half prices for local residents from 5 to 8, and then otherwise it's from 8 o'clock on. It's regular prices for everybody, and it's a very upscale restaurant, and it's doing very well. They did set up a business improvement district. They are planning smaller residential units. They're planning 400 square foot high-density developments with retail on the first floor and residential on the second floor. They're finding that the millennial generation has very different needs, wants, and desires than the baby boomers, and they're happy with 400 square feet, but that serves their needs. They don't have cars. They're going to take the bus. They're going to walk. They're going to ride their bicycle, some of them. They have mixed use and very creative use. There's a building that's a yoga studio that's open for 12 hours during the daytime, and at night it becomes an art gallery. So it's used at night for that problem. I don't know till what time. They are seeing more food sold in Target, which is not taxable. So it's going to decrease their sales tax in that respect by having that sort of a change. So they're on top of it. They're doing a lot of things that wouldn't work here, but it's just interesting to see the other creative ideas that other cities are using to keep their revenues up. So that was interesting. Okay, then we'll go on to boards, committees, and commission appointments. We don't have any tonight. The consent calendar, which is a list of usually minor items that are taken with one motion, unless a member of the audience would like to pull it for separate discussion, or a member of the council would like to pull any item for separate discussion. Would any member of the audience like to pull anything?
C.
Okay.
Is that to be commented on now?
Let me see if there's any other items that council members want to pull.
I'll move the rest of the consent calendar.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, item C.
Says receive report on the Art and Cultural Commission's mobile application program app. This is more and more of microwave radiation devices like the laptops, the cell phones, the cell towers, the iPhones that are proliferating the contamination of our environment. You just gave a fascinating account there of how when people are using, how sales taxes for cities and counties are reduced when people are using these devices. Why promote that? Why promote harm? It's very disturbing to me because something's popular, everyone's doing it. It's like with smoking. You know, everyone was smoking. I remember going to the co-op stores in Berkeley. Everybody was smoking over the food in the 60s. Secondhand smoke, secondhand radiation, user, non-user are harmed. And you've got these parking meters that are the apps. You've got, we know children are most vulnerable. Are you really willing to sacrifice children for these gizmos that evolved out of radar in World War II that we know are lethal, plus all the e-waste? You're encouraging people to buy things that are dangerous and environmentally damaging. Why do that? It's just appalling to me. And I think of one of these public relations firms that says, Burson Marsteller, the role of our communication is to manage perceptions, which motivates behaviors to create business results. So everyone's buying these, the perceptions are it's great, and we don't have alternative perceptions about how egregious it is. Anyway, you probably approve it. I'm just saying I would love to see from the Capitola City Council or anyone else a more critical view and analysis and discarding of what's popular when you know, and we all know, it's dangerous from the evidence. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak on this? Is there a motion?
I move the item C.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item are the general government public hearings, and number 1 is discussion regarding the reestablishment
moment that you enjoy.
Did anyone see the whale this week?
Well, that's what I'm wondering. How many of you have a moment in your head right now of a beautiful natural thing that you saw? Okay. So whether or not it was a sunrise, or a view like this, or the humpback whales, or the beauty along the bay, or the beauty of the birds and the esplanade, the trees, the birds, more birds. The blue-footed booby. Has anybody seen it?
No.
Okay. Well, I think that it just tells you we live in such a beautiful place, and without the beautiful environment that we have, we can't really have a really nice economy, nor can we have a good quality of life for our present and future generations. So, here's our proposed new COE structure. I know that you have looked over this in terms of the criteria that we've set on who should serve. Oh, it's on a fast track here. The commissioners appointed by City Council, we have thought that 5 members would be good, and I know that you are probably going to discuss this tonight. We used to have 8 members, but I only have 5 minutes to talk right now. So 5 members, they'd be appointed by the City Council. 1 staff member, as you just heard from staff, meeting once a month for meetings. The proposed goals of the Commission on the Environment would be to address crucial city environmental and sustainability issues and have well-defined goals, objectives, and action items for accountability. Also, we're going to be writing a brief plan for the year that spells out where the Commission on the Environment should focus its energy and efforts, as well as hone in on alignments with the city in terms of sustainability topics, be hopefully a champion for staff. The project ideas that we have came into 4 different categories: the climate action planning, educational and educational materials. working with the existing governmental structures, and then outreach and action. So with the CAP, we can help staff in terms of implementation. And I know AMBAG and maybe Elizabeth Bertrand Russell can talk about the no-cost tools that we have available for help with that, as well educational materials. We have done some of this, but we'd like to do more in terms of brochures and lecture series, stormwater kinds of issues, a lot of different water issues that are, as we know, quite pressing right now. Also working with the existing structures such as the GPAC, the council obviously, the County Commission on the Environment, other city and county environmental commissions, the CCA and AMBAG. And then we're trying so desperately to involve more youth and diversity in this city because after all, I think most of us in this room can admit that we're getting a little older, and we do want to have good youth leaders that are going to be taking over on the Commission on the Environment because after all, you know, we want to have a quality of life that is just as good or even better than the way we live today. So that takes us to the importance and accomplishments of the COE. I know you've read through those. There's been a lot of them. I don't think I need to go into them. But check out that humpback whale next time you get into town. Just wanted to remind you of sustainability, the whole definition of sustainability. And this is why I've spent 26 years of my life teaching environmental studies and environmental sciences because, you know, it really is all about utilizing components of social, cultural, and biological diversity in a way that doesn't lead to long-term decline, maintaining the potential to meet the needs and aspirations of present and future generations. In other words, let's say it a little easier, it's our financial, social, and environmental responsibility to ensure that present and future generations have a decent way of life without destroying what ultimately sustains all life on Earth and natural ecosystems. And I think we all know what sustains us, where we get our fresh air, where we get our fertile soil, and on and on and on. But I think Capitola has been a model. It was a model with the Commission on the Environment back in 2005. We've done a lot through time. We've been a model for other cities. And so one of my favorite quotes is Mahatma Gandhi, who said, "Be the change you want to see in the world." And I think Capitola has done a lot in terms of the Commission on the Environment, but I think we can do a lot more. So I'm excited about the new restructuring, and I'm looking forward to reconvening as a commission. So thank you for your interest, and one more beautiful shot of a sunrise.
That's gorgeous. Are there any questions?
So, Kristen, you're thinking that it'll be a 5-member commission?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. Made up of just 5 members, no appointments from any other bodies, just 5 members appointed by each one of the council members.
Yeah, in terms of the formal structure, it would be 4 appointees from city council members, the way we see it, and then 1 interested city council person.
So you would have a city council person and then 4 appointees.
That's what the thought is, yeah. But we're certainly open to other ideas. But we do want to have meetings, you know, formal meetings every month, and then every other month we would have subcommittee meetings so that we would involve hopefully a lot of members of the public, bring in a lot of other members of the public to help us with the commission.
And I noted that we don't need to be restricted to just residents of Capitola. Is this true? For our
I think that's a great idea.
Okay. I have no other questions.
Any other questions? Yes.
Just to follow on Kristen's comment on that, is our experience in the past with the Commission on the Environment is, in many cases, lack of attendance because people were appointed by us and by a planning commission that really didn't have any interest in that committee. And so it's difficult to maintain any kind of quorums or even to keep staff interested in momentum of many projects we had. And so 5 is a more workable number for that committee. And obviously, the Commission on Environment survival is dependent on you or us picking reasonable people who are interested in that subject, who have an interest in this field.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Kristen, what's your anticipation of the timing of reconstructing the COE and when you may get started and complete the first year's plan?
Tomorrow.
That sounds excellent. Thank you.
As soon as possible. It has been 9 months, so I'm very excited, and there are a lot of community members I know that really want to step up to be a member of the commission. So as soon as possible.
Would anyone else like to speak? Please come up. We'll form a line if you like. Good evening.
Good evening.
You can sign in if you like, so your name will be spelled correctly in the minutes.
Good evening, City Council members. I am Ana Maria Revelo, and I'm the Sustainability Program Coordinator for the County of Santa Cruz. And among the programs that I coordinate for the county is the Green Business Program, which is mostly funded by the Sanitation District. I'm here to support tonight the Capitola Commission on the Environment. We have collaborated on outreach education in the past and other environmental programs, and I find this collaboration very useful. As you may know, the County of Santa Cruz also has a COE, and it has helped the county set up policies for various environmental programs such as solid waste and recycling, stormwater, water quality, energy efficiency, and climate change. The county administrative officer assigned the Director of General Services to be the liaison between the CAO's office and the Commission. County staff finds the Commission of the Environment very useful, and I commend your council's support for its commission as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
I'm Sharon Saris, and I'm representing myself tonight as a former member of the Santa Cruz County Commission on the Environment. I was appointed, I served on that commission for about 4.5 years, was one of the original members when the Board of Supervisors changed the commission from an energy commission and broadened it out to the Commission on the Environment. And so during that time, and the way it was formed is that each supervisor appointed 2 people from that committee, and we got diversity and a combination of talent that I think worked really well, as I think you're suggesting. And even though our goals were somewhat similar to, I think your proposed goals are similar to the earlier ones, our focus really was, because it could be many things, many people in the county would like to talk about everything that somehow ties to the environment, so we really wanted to focus it on supporting the Climate Action Plan development. So, you know, we worked through Nancy Carr-Gordon, the Director of General Services of the county. She was a staff member assigned to us and at every meeting, and helped in the chair of the commission, you know, of course, form the agenda with her. And I think it was a pretty streamlined function by the staff member, in that you know, other commissioners helped as well. But I think one of the things about that was that we were really advisory board directly to the supervisors. And so, although of course there was a staff member, our letters of encouragement to the board to support a certain piece of legislation, or to support finding other staff, additional staff for the Climate Action Plan, was really the focus of our role. So we did not do specific projects. Basically, it was the meeting and then the work of some people formulating, perhaps the officers formulating some ideas outside that meeting, but it really was focused on having some presentations, some discussion, and then really trying to lay out some suggestions, policies to the Board of Supervisors. So I think the idea of a concise work plan is obviously really important, and focusing on greenhouse gas reduction goals would be great. And obviously, having the staff person, the city staff person assigned to it, being one who, you know, embraces that, is also helpful, and certainly Nancy was that as well. So basically, I recommend that you reconstitute the commission itself here, and I think that it can provide a great service to you as the council and to the community. There's so many things that you can work on, as Kristen mentioned, and yet we know we're at sea level, and there's a lot of things related to that have long-term consequences. So I encourage you to make the best use of that commission and the new appointees. Thank you.
Thanks. Did you want to sign in?
Yes, I'm sorry.
You don't have, people don't have to identify themselves or sign in, but
if
if you'd like to, you're certainly welcome to, and then you'll have your name spelled correctly.
Right.
Next person can come up. Good evening.
Good evening. My name's Elizabeth Russell. I think most of you know me. I work with the AMBAG Energy Watch program, and I've had the honor of serving on Capitola's Commission for the Environment. And one of the things that I can say, working in regional government, I have been so proud that my city is the only city that has a commission on the environment, and I share that when I'm trying to share best practices with all of our cities in our region, that they too might consider developing this type of commission and the type of role that it could serve. And right now, I think it's a really exciting time because AMBAG has been able to work with city staff on modeling energy efficiency strategies, in particular for reducing greenhouse gases. And a lot of those strategies really need legs under them to be effective. And at the end of the day, a climate action plan, according to the governor's office, is only as successful as you can measure and verify that you've actually done the work. And so we're at a really exciting time in our history when we need to mobilize interested, committed people to help get these programs actually up and running. And that's one thing that I could really see that our Commission on the Environment could help do. And toward that end, it would be very focused and targeted work. So Kristen caught that idea, and Dennis, in the plan that they presented to you. So I'd really hope that you would consider it, and I would love to put my name in the hat to serve on the commission again if we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next person. Come on right up. Don't be shy. Good evening.
Good evening. Hello, Mayor and Council members. My name is Tiffany Wise West. I'm a former commissioner on the Commission on the Environment, appointed by Council Member Termini. And I also now currently serve on the County Commission on the Environment, and I work for the City of Santa Cruz in the Planning Department's Climate Action Program. Finally, I'm finishing my my dissertation for my doctorate degree at UCSC in Environmental Studies, hopefully this year. Why I'm here today is I'm here as a resident, but I'm informed by these experiences on these commissions and in my employment. And I just want to urge you to consider reconstituting the Commission on the Environment and the importance of guiding it in its service in support of the final general plan and the climate action plan's goals. Working for the city and working with the county just recently, I know that regional collaboration is crucial in sharing best practices, in pursuing funding, and achieving economies of scale in our combined efforts to achieve our local goals. And I also know that both the city and the county are eager to meet with the Commission on the Environment and work collaboratively to meet goals, especially with the upcoming Climate Action Plan being finalized. Equally important, I think, is the allocation of funds and resources for dedicated staff time, whether that's 6 hours a week or preferably more like a quarter-time staff position, I think, would be very appropriate as we pursue the Climate Action Plan goals. Things like monitoring, tracking, and reporting greenhouse gas emissions, doing outreach to the public, really requires the commitment of staff and, of course, a focused Commission on the Environment. In closing, I would like to urge you to reconstitute the Commission on the Environment under the structure that Kristen has outlined, and that you do consider appointing engaged and focused individuals so it can be a very effective advisory group. And then finally, to really consider allocating resources for staff time to support the CO and our broader environmental goals. So thank you very much.
Thanks for coming down tonight.
Yep.
Next. Good evening.
Hi. My name is Alita Erickson, and I work at UC Santa Cruz. I'm the Sustainability Programs Manager. And wow, if we only had to put 6 hours of staff time to a dedicated group of individuals to do work like this, that would be awesome. because it's expensive. So I think it's really exciting that you guys have this opportunity to reinstate this commission of dedicated, it sounds like not only people who are interested in the issues, but also a lot of topic area experts, which can be hard to come by. I also think that this would be a really interesting opportunity for students to get involved in. I think it sounds good that people outside of Capitola would be able to join the commission. I know a student would love the professional opportunity to represent on this body, and I'd be interested in worming my way in too. Unfortunately, I live just outside Capitola, but it feels close enough. Live Oak. Yeah, so I think it's really exciting that you guys have led the way in doing this, and it sounds like you're leading the way and coming up with as effective an organization as possible, and I'm excited to see where you all can go with this. So good luck making the decision.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Good evening, Council and Mayor Harlan. My name is Amy Forrest. I'm a Capitola resident, and I would just like to encourage you to consider this plan. 6 hours is nothing. I think you actually should add a lot more time to that. The environment is, as people have said, our most important resource. If it ties into the economy, it ties into our quality of life. I'd love to see conservation campaigns with Capitola members as role models for the rest of the county and the rest of California. And I'd also like to see the Commission on the Environment look into things like what Marin County is doing with energy, creating their own energy. The Marin, it's the Energy Authority. You know, there's just so much we can do, and it's important. And you also have an incredible resource here in Kristen Sullivan. She's a bundle of energy herself, so I really encourage you to consider this and to fund it, you know, with the staffing that they need. So thank you.
Thanks. Would anyone else like to speak? This is a public hearing. Then I'll close the public hearing, and I just wanted to start out with a couple of thoughts. One of the reasons why we put the committee on hiatus was that we were having a change in staff, and we wanted to give the staff members a chance to get their feet wet, get to know Capitola, get to know the Capitola ordinances and the rules and regulations and so forth. And I still have that concern today. Rich is, I think, up to his eyeballs in general plan and other planning matters, and I don't want to take him away from that at all for a minute. The general plan, we've waited a long, long time to get that going, and it has a lot more work and to go, and so I would not support assigning him to this committee. And Katie just got here and is learning the ropes and learning everything as fast as she can, but I think it's a little early for her to take on something else also. So I don't know if we have any other staff members that we can spare. Everybody's pretty tied up right now with major projects, and we don't. I don't think we have a lot of time and room. Unfortunately, I think that if we had longtime staff members here that knew all the rules and regulations and could handle their regular assignments, you know, very, very efficiently, that we could think about that. But it's a little early with these two individuals to assign them anything else. So that's just my preliminary caution.
I'd like to ask City Manager, what are your feelings on staff load? Because my first thought was Brian, the building inspector, is a great resource.
Councilmember Termini, council members, I would share many of the sentiments expressed by Mayor Harlan. I do think that the workload that exists in community development today actually exceeds the bodies that are there today to do the job. We are looking, you will recall that there is a unfilled position, Danielle Harriet's old planner tech position that does remain unfilled, and we will be coming back shortly to the council for some proposal about how to get that filled. You know, it comes down to priorities for the council. I mean, I think that's, you know, a key thing to look at. We have a lot of big projects we're working on, and we have always prided ourselves as a customer service community when it comes to our community development services and how quickly we turn around planning applications, how available we are at the front counter, and the general plan process. So, you know, I will find staff available to make this work for the council, whatever direction you'd like to go. But I guess I do want to reiterate that there isn't slack right now that I see in the system. It would come at the expense of other things. And then to circle back to Councilmember Termini's question about our building inspector, I think one of the keys to these Brown Act subcommittees is finding staff with enough experience to provide the guidance and sort of the leadership, if you will. It just helps keep everybody out of trouble. And for example, the County Commission on the Environment is staffed by County Department Head Nancy Carr Gordon. And in the past, with the COE, usually I think it operates best with sort of a management level staff person or higher is generally my experience.
I was just trying to first find someone with, the building department is very much tied into the Commission on the Environment and the Green Building Code. Someone who has a nexus with that, someone who works under Rich,
right,
and someone with, not that old staff members aren't good, but maybe a youthful staff member that really can latch onto this and run with it.
Right, and if the council does want to reinstate it, we will find staff people to do it, and Rich and I will figure out who makes the most sense and who's the most appropriate person to make it happen.
Well, another thought would be to look at it again the first of the year when we get a little bit more behind us in some of these big projects. That's a possibility.
Yeah.
Sam?
Jimmy, the council had approved a new position, the stormwater management or stormwater clean stormwater. Has that position been filled, or what's the schedule on that?
The position has been filled by our former development services technician, Danielle Uhariet. She's working in Steve's department, and if you have some questions, we can talk a little bit about her work program. And certainly, if the council wants to reinstate the COE, we would look across those kinds of positions and figure out, the most appropriate staff person to provide the staffing support. And, I haven't made that decision, and we'd obviously have to evaluate workloads and just look at capacities and experience, but that would be one of the positions that could be thrown in the hopper for the job.
Okay, thank you.
Dennis?
2 weeks ago, I was in Glacier National Park, and the reason I went there was that by the year 2020, there will be no more glaciers in Glacier National Park. And so us living in Capitola have probably seen the better effects of global warming, meaning that we have a very mild climate. We've seen very little rain, although water shortage will become a problem with us. But the whole planet is in fluctuation. Certainly the people of Colorado will back to that, seeing this flood damage and the fire damage that they've seen, and as well as all the western states. So Capitola is a community that's really noted for having calamities. We've had more than our share of them. And that as climate change comes around, it affects a lot of different elements that take place in Capitola. The economics of the coastal towns, the fact that migrations will start changing on this planet, and they're already expecting that. And as it becomes more unlivable in hot areas, western states, the southern states. Where would they move? They would be moving to the central part of the climate zone where absolutely where Capitola is. And so we're going to see increasing demand on environment or concern with environmental issues when our community is protected as we see now. We're not immune to what could happen out there. And so I think the Commission on the Environment served a very good function in the past. And at the time that we discontinued, you have to remember we were two employees short. We had no assistant to Steve, and we didn't have a planning director at the time. So we're back to pretty close full complement. We have one other person we're going to be putting in place within a reasonable amount of time. So we're back to full complement. I think it's important also that that the people who serve the city in these positions also have a contact line with the general public. And in many ways, committees work that. And so someone like Katie, for example, her experience at the planning counter is good, and she has a good background. She's got a ways to go to learn things. But her contact with a committee like the Commission on the Environment is an important source of information that comes from the outside as well as in it. The other issue is that we have a wonderful, as the people who just come and spoke this podium, a wonderful opportunity to learn from people in the community who are educated on this subject here and have a concern and a desire to give free service to their community in this way. And so I'm in favor of moving forward with this position as Danielle's position gets filled, hopefully in the soon time. staff can come up with someone that'll take a seat. The energy and the work really takes place from the committee members. Staff is there to regulate and document what goes on. I think it would be important that this council gives clear direction what they would like to see this committee to do, and that there'll be a regular reporting procedure of what things are being fulfilled, and also in presentation to the council. But I'm honestly ready to move forward and bring the Commission on the Environment back. I think it's extremely important. We were the first Commission on the Environment in the whole county. In 2005, we were the first one. Everyone's taken after they've established theirs, and now we let it fall to the wayside. I think it's an important committee, and I would be in favor of bringing it back to place before the beginning of the year.
Ted?
Just a couple comments. I've met with some people on the Commission on the Environment. I think it's a great group of people. I think, as was mentioned earlier, we're very lucky to have people with such knowledge wanting to volunteer their time. One concern I have is I served on a couple commissions, or one commission before I got elected, and what I'm always afraid of is commission burnout, and I like to keep people energized. I read a note in the proposal here, and maybe I misread it, but I thought that the original plan was to meet once a month with the meeting and then alternate with the subcommittee. And I know that when the Parking Commission began to drop a little bit, we went to meeting every other month with interposing subcommittee meetings in there. So it's just something I think to keep a commission alive. And for whatever reason, I know there's a lot that we need to do, and I feel this commission is essential. But I'd be more inclined to want to have them meet every other month with their subcommittee meetings in between that, to allow them a chance to meet, discuss items, and then come to the meeting, the regular meetings, with information to actually get some things done and make some progress. The good thing about that is it would be less of a demand of the people that go for the regular meetings, and maybe the staff hours might be a little bit less. If it was, I know at this point we're digging for the hours. We're trying, and I do recognize Stephanie's concerns about the load of the new people, and maybe if the hours were like 3 or 4 hours a month, it would be easier to make that work. So I do support this committee. I support the people that are donating their time and their knowledge. I just want it to be very successful, so I'm thinking maybe that might be a better way to go.
Mike?
I'm very much in favor of getting it going right now. I thought about the alternating meetings. I think that the actual meeting hours aren't the real load on staff with the Commission on the Environment. It is the tasks and the work that staff is tasked with, who's taking care of the Commission. So I think we can impress upon the Commission the need to not load the staff member down with more work than is necessary and do some of the heavy lifting themselves, thereby keeping it to 6 hours. I don't think 6 hours a month is a huge load for this important an issue. So I would make a motion to reinstitute the Commission on the Environment with the makeup recommended by Kristen's presentation, and do it immediately.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
I'll second that motion.
Would the council members like to have one council member on there, or have us each appoint someone so that we have more citizens? Because one of my thoughts was actually to have an 8-member committee so that it's broader, you have more participation from the community, get more diversity and so forth, get more ideas, so that it's not just a little small group that's going in one direction, but it's broad.
Where would you suggest the other appointments come from, Stephanie? Do you have any ideas?
We could do them, together, kind of at large appointments or something like that. Not sure about that, but unless a council member has a burning desire to be on the committee, we're pretty loaded down with things ourselves, but we certainly could do that. Whatever structure you like.
I would like to stay on that committee.
Okay.
That means there would be 5 total, and each one of us would have an appointment, plus yourself. And there's usually a youth member that usually comes forward ultimately, and there are several.
Well, we appointed one.
Right, and that's just a general appointment, so there'll be a youth member for sure.
That'll be 7 then.
There are generally some ad hoc members.
That would be 6.
That would be 6, but there's usually some ad hoc members that attend, water quality people, folks from UCSC. So, in this kind of committee, I think smaller is better. and I don't see any reason why 6 wouldn't work.
Yeah, what I would like to see is maybe that particular question go back to Kristen with her recommendation and staff, and to look at what is the right body, the right numbers of persons. I'm a little hesitant to agree to a larger group because, as I understood, that's what kind of got us into trouble before, and a larger group is going to take up more staff time than a smaller group that is committed, that is focused. And if I could maybe just speak on, to the motion. First, I want to start and thank Kristen for all your dedication and continued hard work to bring us this plan. I think that maybe we are looking at it a little bit the wrong way, of thinking of it as a burden on the city and the staff. And maybe we should be looking at it as we have the opportunity to have 5 volunteers giving of their service and time and efforts to the city at no cost, and to support the staff. And if you have that dedicated number of people with a written plan each year that is coordinated with the staff and determining what you're going to look at, what's going to be the allocation of responsibilities, I think that's something the city manager can maybe utilize to supplement the staff, not burden the staff. I think dedicating 6 hours could pay back tremendous benefits. The Climate Action Plan is already imposed upon us. We have to respond to that. And having a group of volunteers to do that, seems to me, removes that responsibility from having to do the legwork, actually draft those plans without having the staff involved. So I would encourage us to maybe look at it from a different perspective. But I think Jamie also makes an excellent point. It is a question of values. How much do we value the Commission on the Environment and the work that's being done? And for me, I think that we should put as much value as we do on Traffic and Parking, the Finance Advisory Committee, and the Art and Cultural Commission. To me, the last leg of that stool, which we have been missing for quite some time, is the Commission on the Environment. And we do have many environmental issues aside from the Climate Action Plan. We got water sustainability, the clean water runoffs, and we can go on and on. But I think it is important for us to elevate our environmental concerns to the level of a standing committee and be devoted and committed to it as a community. And also, as these other bodies also give us the ability to bring in interested residents and volunteers to assist us and to be an outlet for us, and to kind of be liaisons in the various areas of traffic and finance and art. Let's add environment to that list of committees. So with all that, I will support the motion. I would just ask that maybe on the question of the body, that we let staff working with Kristen and her and anyone else who may be interested in working out what is that ideal number that's going to best achieve our objectives. Thank you, Mayor.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I've got the proposal that they've made, and it looks to me like they're asking for a 5-person panel. That looks like 4 and 1 is what I look like what was requested. So it appears that they are okay with 4 members and 1 council representative, and that's my only comment.
Maybe we can have Kirsten come up and just comment on that.
Okay, and let me just, I think this might help frame the conversation a little bit. My suggestion, if you'd like to proceed with this, is that we typically form these committees by resolution, is that based on the input we've received tonight, council direction after a vote, I guess, and then we would come back with a resolution reconstituting the COE pursuant to the plan, and then we would advertise for the positions, which we'd have to do, and then the council would come back and fill the position. So there's a couple of little steps along the way, procedural steps. I think we should hear from Kristen about her input on the council size. And then the other thing to think about, which I've heard several statements by the council and would want to get clarity as we prepared the resolution, would be about non-city residents and whether we wanted it to be just purely a city committee or whether we want to open up the membership.
I think non-city residents are critical for this. I
Okay.
think we've been hamstrung by only having city residents. There is some remarkable environmental power out there just outside of our borders. Let's not restrict ourselves here. Maybe we can get a comment from Kristen about, I know she put a lot of thought into this makeup of 5 persons. Any feelings?
Yeah, I think as Sue pointed out earlier, this was put together by many commissioners past and present and council members past and present and other members of the community. And I think the thought was that we had 8 before, as you had mentioned, 5 city council, 1 planning, 1 at-large, and 1 youth. And the thought was that the at-youth has been kind of we have a lot of youth in this town that are very interested in the environment, and they are so enthusiastic, and they come onto the commission, and they don't necessarily get things done as much as they'd like to. It's just the nature of the beast. I've been an instructor for 26 years, and I know we have a lot of youth that want to get involved, but the follow-through sometimes is not as great. So my thought is, if we can get our youth on the commission as one of the 5, that would be great. But bringing youth in from other places, I think youth would be very willing to come in and work on certain projects. So those every other month meetings would be the subcommittee meetings, and I think we could bring a lot more youth and diversity into this committee by doing so. I also think Dennis made a really good point about making sure that the appointees are people that are enthusiastic and ready to take on the tasks of the Commission on the Environment and ready to do some outside work. I think that was one of those sticking points before. But I mean, I'm open to other ideas. This was just the one that came up most, I would say, with my discussions with people. So.
And I'll amend my motion to include the fact that Kristen will get together with the city manager. When the resolution comes back, it will be formulated as far as how the body is made up.
Dennis?
Just following Kristen on the youth thing, one of our experiences is that youth members that came on, they change every year. In other words, they're going to school one year, they're not going to school next year, they're going to Cabrillo, they go to UCSC, and they travel around. So you can never get a youth member to really be around for we never have one more than a year. So maybe that position, we could have a position like that, but it should be an ad hoc committee, because the advertising and the promotion to go looking year after year for somebody to do that, which we have to do by law, becomes burdensome again to the staff. So that's managing and having a dedicated group and bringing in other people, great. We will encourage people to do that. But I think that the youth position really should be an ad hoc position, because you're just not going to keep somebody more than a year, and it becomes filling that position becomes tough. Okay.
Thanks. Any other comments? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. The next item is to receive a report on traffic mitigation options for Park Avenue. Let's give everybody a couple minutes, maybe. Sure. Thanks.
That's a big group.
Yeah, there's a bunch of environmentalists. That's great. I'd like to see us knock down the crowds. Big clumps. Sue, is your wireless mic off?
Chief Escalante.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. Rudy Escalante, Chief of Police. So a few months ago, council directed staff to examine some potential options at speed issues on Park Avenue. Some of the neighbors from the residents in that area had indicated some concerns about speed issues, and so I tried to look at some in-depth options, tried to look what the state requirements are, and also try and look at other options that we might not have looked at in the past and what might be available now, and tried to look at other communities to see what they have done to try and reduce any speed concerns.
I also looked at accident data and tried to get a better look so I could provide you with all the information so that we could decide what you would like to, direction you'd like to take. So when we look at Park Avenue and we look at the state laws as to what we can do and what we can't do, one of the things that they asked to look at, and I actually consulted with our traffic commissioner here in Santa Cruz County, is they look at the length of the road and the type of road, and I'm going to refer to section 40802 of the Vehicle Code, where it says a local governing agency may declare a street or road a local road, and they put it in quotes as a local road, if it primarily provides access to abutting residential property and meets the following three conditions. Number one is that the roadway width of not more than 40 feet, so it can't be any wider than 40 feet. In this instance, Park Avenue, I measured it in several sections. The widest I could find was 39 feet 10 inches. And I also looked back at a staff report, which I believe I forwarded on, that had the same distance. However, our speed survey from 2010 indicates 4110. But I'll come back to that and I'll just give you a better understanding. Not more than 1/2 of a mile of uninterrupted length. Now from Monterey all the way up to Kennedy, it's 0.68 miles. So even though the width, there's a width issue there, it's kind of irrelevant because the length of it is more than 1/2 a mile. And then the third piece to it is not more than one traffic lane in each direction, so that fits there. And so I bring that up because actually the whole topography of Park Avenue presents some significant challenges. One of them from, let's say, Cabrillo west towards Monterey, there's a couple of dips in the road. The other challenges are is there's no sidewalks, there's no gutters. You have residents, over 20 private driveways that come in and out of or are attached to Park Avenue. And then you have 4 roadways that actually enter Park Avenue. Actually, there's 5 of them if you include Cabrillo and Wesley. So you have those factors in there that actually will allow or warrant reducing the speed, whatever that might be. So under that section 40802, there's certain things you have to do when you set the parameters as far as the speed limit goes. And this is a state mandated process. This is not a process that we have developed. And what you have to do in order to enforce speed issues on a road that fits those conditions, you have to do a speed survey. And as I earlier mentioned, the last time we did our survey was in 2010. It requires it to be done on a regular basis every 5, 7, 10 years. And when you do that, you go out and we basically shoot radar for a period of time. And when we did this the last time, we did it in the middle of the afternoon, at 2 in the afternoon. And we did it on a Tuesday during the week. And we shoot the radar and we get at least 100 vehicles within a time frame so that we get a better sample, a larger sample size of what the critical speed is. And we do a calculation and we figure out what the 85th percentile is of that speed. And in this instance, we utilized the speed conditions, and the critical speed for eastbound traffic was 34 miles per hour between Cabrillo and Kennedy. And then between Cabrillo and Monterey, it was 36, so that'd be the westbound traffic. And what the law says is that you then round to the nearest 5 miles per hour. So with 34 and 36, we round to 35. Now when you have conditions which I explained earlier on the, I would say, the west section of Park Avenue between Cabrillo and Monterey, where you have sight distance issues, you have intersecting driveways, intersecting roadways, you have no pedestrian walkways. When you have those issues, and then you throw in accident data, you can actually lower it down by 5 miles per hour. So in the chart that's up on the screen, you can see that since 2010 we've actually had 10 accidents. Now the one at the top where the big circle with the 3 arrows in it, that was one accident involving 3 vehicles. Each red circle indicates one accident. And you can see as cars are approaching Kennedy, those are where we've had some accidents. The rear enders If somebody is traveling at an unsafe speed, which is a speeding violation, they could be going 5 or 10 miles per hour and still be traveling at an unsafe speed. And so that would be the primary collision factor on a specific accident. So when we have a speeding violation or the collision factor is because of speed, it doesn't mean that they were going 40 or 50 miles an hour. It means that they were going at unsafe speed for the conditions of the road. And then as you look further up, you can see that people who pulled away from the stop sign, we had an issue with somebody, vehicle that pulled away and drifted to the right of the roadway and collided with a tree. And then if you go back towards the bottom left of the screen between Cabrillo and Monterey, you actually have the types of accidents. The first one, vehicle collided with a bicycle. This was on the wrong side of the road. You had a yield violation, and again, that's near the dip, the couple of dips that we have in the roadway. And moving to the left, again, we have a yield violation, and then a vehicle versus pedestrian and another rear end violation. So when you are able to drop the speed limit down by 5-mile increments, as I earlier described, you can do that based on the accident data and the roadway itself. Now, the area between Cabrillo and Kennedy there, there's not that much of a sight distance issue. And on the south side of the road, there's a pedestrian walkway. There's a sidewalk there to walk through. So I looked at those, all those issues and all of the area to try and get some determination of what we could possibly do. And, you know, people have seen us utilize our radar trailer. It's attached to our truck, and we drive it out there and we drop it off. Now, the issue with that is that it would be parked in the bicycle pathway, and it kind of forces bicyclists out into the roadway. And with Park Avenue there, we actually have, it's a no parking area, except there are sections where you can park on the south side of the road of Park Avenue between Monterey and Cabrillo over by the tree. So there are some sections there. And so with vehicles pulling out, that's another one of those issues that allows you the opportunity to lower it by 5 more miles per hour. So looking at the accident data, and we compared it with other roads, like Wharf Road and Bay Avenue, and the difference between those two roads actually, because there's a high level of traffic, but there's not continuous traffic. You have a stop sign right there, in front of Nob Hill. Then you have the 4-way intersection. So there's no section there that is more than a half a mile long, which allows us to do more things. So hopefully I can get this right here. So option 1 was to change the speed limit. And as I mentioned earlier, the survey shows that they're 34 to 36 miles per hour. And the law says that we're not allowed to artificially lower the speed limit. And the reason for that is you are essentially creating a speed trap. So if the survey speed is 35 miles per hour, but you have issues that I earlier described that allows you to go down 5 miles per hour, if you went down any further, we would not be able to write citations. If somebody called and complained and says, hey, they're going, it's posted 30 or 25 miles per hour, they're going 30 or 35, and turns out the survey speed is 35, we couldn't write a ticket. So it would also create some unrealistic expectations for pedestrians and bicyclists. And what I mean by that is if I'm out walking on the street or on the sidewalk or trying to cross the street, and I expect people to be traveling 25 and they're coming at 35, then they're still within the law. And so we would be creating an expectation that the traffic is actually traveling slower. And so studies have demonstrated that changing the speed limit alone does not usually result in lower vehicle speeds. And below I put a couple of links there to some traffic studies that talk about stop signs and lowering the speed limit, and I think I also put one in your packet as well. And again, the existing roadway conditions is really important to recognize. Even though it does not create an exception or warrant any reduction in speed, when we look at Park Avenue between Cabrillo and Kennedy there are no roadways that come out onto Park Avenue. There's no driveways there. People would be pulling out. And so if I actually went back one, you can see that there's actually no accident data for that section of the roadway that we were looking at. So our second option was adding a stop sign, and studies have found that unwarranted multi-way stop signs actually increase speeding, because what people do is it slows them down and then they want to get in a hurry to get back to where they were going. And what they also start to do is not come to a complete stop, and it creates rear-enders, it creates people who are running stop signs. And so there are, within the surveys that I mentioned earlier, it actually talks about the multi-use stop signs. What it does is it increase a higher vehicle operating cost, there's longer travel times, excessive fuel consumption, increased noise, and vehicle emissions. Basically, vehicles come into a stop, brakes are squealing, and then they're trying to rev their car up to go again. So that might be an issue that we would be creating if we did that. And the multi-way stop signs actually do not meet the criteria, and they will actually increase speeds. And so staff would not recommend options 1 and 2. The third option, The third option, going back, is to redesign Park Avenue to include traffic calming measures such as median islands or bulb outs to narrow the vehicle lanes and the width to try and slow people down, and that actually does work. Traffic calming design and working with our Public Works Director would be between $200,000 and $300,000. There is the proposed pavement management program that's included in fiscal year 14-15 to repave Park Avenue, or a portion of it there, and so adding traffic calming measures at that time would make sense if that was an option that you would like to explore. The other option that I looked at with other communities is a solar-powered speed sign, and they install digital speed display signs. The nice thing about them, too, is they track speed traffic, so they basically do our own survey for us. Instead of having to sit volunteers out there with a radar gun, it has a component within it that does it itself, and we can download the data. The signs are triggered at a defined speed, so what it would do is flash the speed as to what you should be going, or it'd be posted, and then it would flash their speed, and then it would change to red to say slow down, so we can do that. And there's another feature to it, which I'll show in the photograph of one that I have as we go through the presentation. The signs can be set at either display, only the vehicle speed, or alternate. Again, they are available in red or amber colors. It's not a sound issue, so you wouldn't be hearing a bell or anything like that. So the neighbors wouldn't be complaining about loud noises coming from it, hopefully. And my suggestion would be to explore the purchasing of at least 2 of these. We can put one in either direction. They're about $8,000 each. And the nice thing is that you can also move them around. They're not affixed. They are affixed to lag bolts that are sunk into the sidewalk, but you can still move them around, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. So the signs can also be used to enhance traffic calming programs, and they can be used with other traffic calming devices. And in speaking with the traffic commissioner, we could still actually use radar in the area where these are placed. So that's kind of a picture of what they look like. What I was mentioning earlier, if you look at the base of it, the nice thing about it, it's not in the traffic area for bicyclists, so we kind of don't have an issue there. And if you put it in an area on the sidewalk, they're wide enough that at least you can still have ADA accessibility going through there. And so that was the option that I was looking at, and I wanted to make sure that you had an opportunity to look at what I was exploring. And so that concludes my report, and I'm prepared to take any questions or direction that you would like.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions, Mike?
If these collect traffic data continually and people start to continually drive at 45, do we need to raise the speed limit to 45?
No, because the traffic survey data was telling us it was not. But back to your question, if it says that it is higher, then we would have to explore that.
Really?
If we wanted to continue to use radar as an enforcement tool.
Okay. Interesting.
But these are commonly used as a way to lower the traffic speed.
Yeah. Interesting and frustrating at the same time.
It's very complex, and sometimes it's frustrating for me as well.
No doubt.
And Councilmember Termini, I can assure you that if we put these up and it resulted in an increase in speed, they would come down relatively quickly.
Well,
Sam?
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, did I hear you right when you were talking about the 30 miles per hour, that we would have the ability to do that without impinging upon your ability to use radar to control the traffic?
Well, we couldn't lower it to 30 miles an hour in the one section between Cabrillo and Kennedy because there's no intersecting driveways. It's a no parking area. There's no streets that intersect.
Okay, so we'd have this weird thing where it's 30, then 35, then 30 again. On the traffic calming, the figure of $200,000 to $300,000, was that taken into consideration if it were included with the $400,000 pavement management program in 14-15?
I'm going to have to ask my partner, the Public Works Director, on that.
that's kind of what I was starting to think about, that 3 and 4 together, 3 being more long-term than 4.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, it would be in addition to the paving project that is proposed to be funded.
So, but it would, if we tried to coordinate that with the pavement, it would still be $200,000 to $300,000 more than the $400,000.
That's correct.
Okay, so that you're building that in. So we'll have to try to anticipate that. And now on the solar powered signs, Chief, did you have a preliminary idea of where they would be located?
Well, I was looking at one, obviously about 50 to 100 feet before Cabrillo, and then one around the other side as well, or putting them across the way, but I'm open to direction.
I was kind of anticipating that one would, as you're going east, out Park, that one would be closer to Monterey.
Yes.
So then and then coming west, it would be closer to Cabrillo.
That's correct.
So they would be juxtapositioned like that.
Well, yeah, it would definitely slow the outbound traffic and then get people to slow coming in.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Dennis?
Rudy, can you go back to the aerial on that first picture you had there? From Coronado to Kennedy, that section right there.
Yes.
And there's no driveways in the area, but there's no sidewalks there.
That's correct.
In the area. So isn't that a pedestrian hazard right there? Just the fact that we had no walkways along that section of road that people can transfer safely. The trees come up the edge of the road. There's no way to walk except for in the bicycle lane along that whole stretch. It seems to me that the state would look at that as being a pedestrian hazard, which has the right to roadway as well as cars do.
Well, I guess you also would have to throw in the RTC, who now owns the railroad, because that is in that area as well. It all depends on where it would be, but I'm also going to defer to Mr. Jesper.
I just want to, there's a pedestrian path through that eucalyptus grove.
Up above?
Up above there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and there's bike lanes there. Well,
it's kind of, it doesn't meet ADA,
best,
it doesn't meet anything.
It doesn't meet ADA, but there, from a pedestrian safety.
The point is that there may not be a vehicular proven hazard there, but it appears to me that there's certainly a pedestrian hazard with there. And I'll tell you what's happened with the RTC is they have told us that we cannot do a pedestrian crossing there at Coronado. You know how everyone walks across the tracks down below? They say we cannot do a pedestrian passage there. So what happens is to do it safely, you have to get yourself up to the next intersection is where the stairs come down to the state park. It's the only way that you legally can come down through there.
Doesn't stop the pedestrians.
No, they do it.
Okay.
They still do it, yeah. But the point is that we had talked about when we purchased a corridor to put a walkway through there. It's not going to happen because you're crossing a railroad corridor.
I think the other challenge that we would have is there's no data to suggest that.
Mm-hmm. But we can. We already talked about two. Didn't we talk about 2 accidents that happened up there regarding a bicyclist and maybe he was going the wrong way, but still, the point is that it isn't a pedestrian bicycle safe area, and so it really kind of bothers me that the state mandates us to increase the speed more than we feel is safe. That really bothers me, that
That's
we're
why I think
forcing
the
that
traffic
situation.
calming is an important element to this,
Yeah.
not just the radar. Do we have any grant opportunities for those radar units?
Well, we actually obtained an OTS grant, Office of Traffic Safety, to purchase 2 of them, hopefully here in the next couple of weeks. And that is for Bay Avenue, because we want to slow the traffic coming up Bay towards Capitola. And we also want to move one over on Wharf, because we get a lot of complaints there as well. And as I referred to the accident data in my staff report, that we want to put 2 there already. And they are flexible in that we could move them in other areas where we be in need, especially during the peak season and during the area as school starts, is what our thought is.
We've spent considerably more than $200,000 preparing to do traffic calming on Claire's. Another, I don't think $200,000 is a big price to pay to make.
Well, if anything,
Park
we should
Avenue
do
safe.
we should do a sidewalk there.
In conjunction with that, I mean that whole this street, this entire street warrants many hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Particularly if we're looking at doing the new park thing at McGregor. That's going to be a thoroughfare through there, whether it's on the railroad corridor or along that edge there.
Well, one other thing to consider too, if they are successful in lowering the speed, then we get to lower the speed limit because the speed survey is lower.
Council, one of my suggestion on this would be that if your council is interested in pursuing with the option 4, the obvious near-term solution of getting some of these solar-powered speed displays is we can do that. We could make, with your direction tonight, we could make the allocation, make the purchase out of the equipment fund, and try and get them up and get the posts for them at the same time that we're looking at the posts for these others, these OTS grant-funded ones. Regarding the traffic calming project, it's an obvious time to do it in 15-16, I believe, when we have the overlay plan for Park Avenue. My suggestion, though, would be that we wait. We don't have to make that decision tonight, and you want to see how these new signs work. That if, as the chief suggested, they do lower speeds, we could lower the speed limit, and maybe we've solved our problem. Because there certainly are a lot of different areas that we could be spending money down the road. You don't need to make the decision about programming a traffic calming project for 15-16 tonight, and these steps can be taken incrementally. So that's my suggestion.
Yeah, I think that I would like to make the motion
We
to.
have to have public hearing
Oh, I'm
first.
sorry, public hearing, but
Question?
I think that the idea of not doing the traffic calming, I think it should happen now, because at the very least, there are more sidewalks than we have programmed need to be put in. The bike lanes need to be improved. Everything having to do with people not in cars really needs to be paid attention to. This is an accident ready to happen. No pun intended. Sorry, Ed. I stepped on you.
Questions?
Just a quick question. I haven't been keeping track of this. I know there was some problem with solar panels on the pay stations. Have there been any more incidents of those panels disappearing, or was that just a one-time incident?
To the best of my knowledge, it was a one-time incident.
Okay, great.
This is a public hearing. Would anyone like to speak on this issue?
Drove me crazy. Somebody stole the solar panel.
Then I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the council. Could we put those red light cameras on there?
The red light cameras?
First, we have to put a red light in.
I guess you can't do that. Just
Could you just
if
put
somebody's speeding.
could you put fake cameras with a flash on it?
Well, I was, trying to take into consideration the people that live in the apartment complexes there, that the signs are not going to be so bright that all of a sudden we are going to get complaints about it. So that's why I think the positioning is going to be important.
Comments?
I have a comment.
Yes, Ed.
I've seen these signs used in other cities, and they're very successful. The first thing they do is alarm you that you are exceeding the speed, and most people do respond. I'm not going to stereotype who accelerates or who continues, but I think to most people, they recognize, I am exceeding the speed limit and slow down. Especially when you're coming from the freeway from Park into town, and I think that was where the complaint primarily originated from, is people that are at the speed of 35 or maybe a couple miles are over that, and they're not making the transition to the 25. So when we talked about the location of the signs, obviously that would be, I would think, prime location is coming that direction as soon as they probably cross. I guess the sign, does it change at Cabrillo? Is that where it goes back to 25?
That's correct.
Okay, so it would be somewhere prior to that. And when we mentioned the other one on the other side, I think, as Councilman Story mentioned, when they're leaving town, they begin to build up speed, and it would be probably closer to Monterey, where you're advising them, hey, you're getting up there too fast, because one consideration is as we do improve the surface, it's going to lead to more speed. So it could work either way. I'm not sure I'm ready to jump on board with the traffic calming right away. I'm thinking that this is something you've got it in mind to try on Bay, to try to see this and see how it works and make an evaluation, especially at $8,000. It seems pretty prudent at this point, and if we end up being able to use them someplace else, we would have 4 of these in our cache then now is what we're talking about. So I'm leaning towards something in that direction with, giving these things a try and see if we do recognize some kind of reduction.
Chief, where does the speed limit change from 25 to 35 on Park Avenue?
Right there by Wesley and Cabrillo.
Okay.
Be just like the rest of that avenue. People are always confused when they're in the 35 or the 25, and they always will be. There's no way to change that. So unless there's a motion for taking this to 25, I'm not going to vote for it. Not that I'm not in favor of doing other things. I may be in favor of that. But I think it needs to be 25 like the rest of the city. It's less dangerous than Wharf Road or Upper Capitola Avenue. Those areas are probably worse. But those are 25, and those are enforceable at that speed. This can be enforceable at 25.
It can't with a radar gun, though. That's the problem. I want the police to be able to use radar and give tickets.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, correction. Wasn't it by law, Chief, that we were not allowed to lower it below, or it just takes away the ability to lose radar?
That's correct. We're not allowed. To artificially lower it would be creating a speed trap.
Right.
So, but we can still lower it. The police just couldn't give out any tickets below 35.
We couldn't.
Between 25 and 35, we'd have no enforcement.
We'd have no enforcement capabilities.
But we could still change it all to 25.
See, it doesn't matter if give a person a ticket at 35 or above. It's what you have now.
But what I'm hearing from the survey, and true, I'm not a fan of traffic surveys, but from the survey, it's saying that artificially lowering it hasn't shown any results anywhere.
That's correct.
It's a statement. I got to agree. It's a statement.
Chief, could you clarify the use of the radar? So if we lowered it to 25, is the situation that you could only use radar for those that are going between 25 and 35, or you could not use radar at any speed?
We can only use radar in an area that has been certified with a speed survey. And that speed survey is what we are allowed to use radar at. The only way you can lower in 5-mile-an-hour increments based on the survey is if there are other conditions that exist, such as accident data and the conditions of the roadway.
And we don't have any of those
conditions. We don't
conditions.
have any of that there, in that section of the roadway.
So, but what would be the consequence to your ability to use radar if we were to just decide to reduce it to 25?
Well, it wouldn't just be to me. It would be to the pedestrians and the bicyclists.
Well, right, I understood that that kind of expectation of pedestrians, but speaking to your ability to use radar, is it gone completely on Park Avenue?
That's correct.
So you wouldn't be able to use it at all.
That's correct.
To give anyone, whether they were going 26 miles an hour or 50 miles an hour.
That's correct.
Or 75 miles an hour.
We would have no ability to write a citation via radar at all.
Even at 50 miles an hour?
That's correct.
Really?
I've confirmed that with the commissioner. If we want to enforce radar there in that section, we need an accurate speed survey.
Okay, and the speed signs.
That's correct.
May get us there.
Well, we can still do it with or without the speed signs because we have a current speed survey for that section of the roadway.
But
the
you're
speed
correct.
signs,
The speed signs may help bring that down to follow up with a lower
right.
level.
Right.
Because
So
you got to have that behavioral change in order to get good data to then be able to lower the speed limit.
If we put the speed signs up and the speed survey then gets lower, in other words, the traffic starts to slow down, then we can adjust the speed limit.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the speed signs on Park Avenue to be purchased and deployed as soon as possible. I think at a location that the chief may determine in conjunction with the city manager as appropriate. In addition, we asked staff to look at, as they're doing the pavement management on Park Avenue, of including for 14-15, or whatever year that should take place, additional traffic calming measures.
I'll second that.
Other discussion?
Council, one point of clarification before you take a final vote. We would interpret that to mean that we would take an allocation out of the equipment replacement reserve, and this would authorize the budget amendment to take the equipment replacement funds and use it for this purchase.
Yes.
Is that all right?
That's what I understood.
The maker of the motion and the second?
Yes, understood.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion
No.
carries. Oh, I'm sorry. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, what was the vote again?
4, and Dennis dissented. Dennis was a no vote.
Okay.
Item number C, presentation regarding the city's capital improvement program for the fiscal year 2013-14 through fiscal year 17-18. Public Works Director Jesper.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm honored to be here and present the updated 5-year capital improvement program. I have a short presentation. I'll run through the projects that we are funding in the current year and propose for funding in future years. Give you a short update on the pavement management program as we are today. In 2013-14, we have a series of projects that are both continued and new projects. These projects and their funding have all been approved already through the budget process. They include an overlay on 38th Avenue, we heard about earlier today, traffic calming on Claire's, pavement management. This is a bank for pavement management on Monterey Bay and Fanmar. It is not a fully funded project. It will be fully funded as we go through this program in future years. And also the construction of the Lower Pacifico parking lot. We added funding to completely fund some other projects. We have the Bay Avenue streetscape and paving again. Park Avenue sidewalks as a sidewalk project that goes from Monterey to Cabrillo, and that will include crossings, sidewalk, pedestrian crossings across Park Avenue that will have significant amount of signage with them to warn travelers of the sidewalk crosswalks that will be there. We have Stockton Avenue pedestrian improvements to improve the crossings at the intersection of Stockton Avenue and Esplanade. Hill Street pedestrian improvements to look at ways to improve there is no pedestrian access all on Hill Street between Capitola Ave and Rosedale. So we're looking at removing parking on one side of the street and either adding a sidewalk or a bike lane depending on funding. And then we have a bank again for some undetermined park improvements. I think at the budget session we talked about the risk bin we talked about. We're obviously looking at some park development on the McGregor property. So as we move forward with that, that money will get allocated at the direction of the City Council. In 2014-15, just to make sure that when we do have the paving on the other, we have the sidewalk project that goes from Monterey to Cabrillo, and then we'll be paving from Cabrillo to Kennedy in 2014-15. And this, I've started this because that's where we would want to add the traffic calming if we have additional funding to add to that project. This would be the time to do that, or not tonight, but that would be the project we want to add it to. We have some paving in the Rosedale Avenue area. The Santa Cruz County Sanitation District has a major sewer project to remove the existing sewer main that runs along Noble Gulch, and they're trying to move it out away from the gulch, which is environmentally a great thing to do. They're going to bring it through Brookvale Terrace Mobile Home Park and down Rosedale Avenue. As we've seen in the past, those projects are hard on the road. We have them slurry Park Avenue, following that project, this is going to be a lot more open trenching, so I'd like to coordinate being able to repave that street as part of that project. And including that would be, there's 3 small cul-de-sacs, I think Rosedale Court, Alma Court, and I can't remember the third one right now, pave those at the same time. So it's kind of critical we include that funding in that year. Otherwise, I probably would push that back a little. We've always talked about, and we've funded and defunded a hazard assessment of the Stockton Avenue Bridge. I think with the local hazard mitigation plan, the Stockton Avenue Bridge was rated as one of the highest hazards we should be looking at. We're talking about flood hazards. And I think it's just time we take a look at it and determine what our options are. So I've put some money in there. And then, again, the undetermined park improvement bank, we have some money that if we don't spend it this year would carry forward into that year. 15-16, it's all paving at this point. Monterey Avenue, Monterey Kennedy paving, so that'd be from Bay Avenue all the way up to Park Avenue. And we have paving in the 42nd and Diamond neighborhood. And then we're hoping by this time we can get PG&E moving on an underground project along Bay Avenue. We currently aren't fully funded. We're working with them to try and rescope that project. I haven't had a lot of chance in the last few months to work on it, so I'm kind of pushing it back at this point and see if we can get PG&E moving. 16-17, Fanmar paving and drainage. There's a significant amount of drainage work that needs to be done. Large ponding that goes on there now. It's a very flat road, so a good portion of that is drainage improvements. And then some paving on between 43rd and 48th Avenue. And finally in 17-18, trying to do a Bay Avenue streetscape and paving project. Doing some paving in the Washburn neighborhood, Washburn, Nova, and McCormick, paving 30th Avenue, and then a slurry in the Jewel Box. Quick update on our pavement management program. In pages 3 and 4 in the program, you can see we have the list of paving projects that actually goes through 1 year beyond the program into 18-19. I apologize, the graph's small. I was playing with the graphics today and I couldn't get them any bigger, but currently we're at about a pavement condition index of 62. This is 2010. We were at 66, and as we know, we haven't been investing a great deal in our roads. Last couple of years, we've slid about 4 points, so we're currently at about 62. Just a reminder where we are to maintain our existing PCI. We need to invest about $550,000 annually into the roads. To increase it to 70, we need to invest about $700,000 for 5 years. If we had unlimited funding, and the program would call for us to spend about $1.8 million a year, and that would get us into the 80s. And I don't think that should be a target. I think between the 550 and the 700 is where we need to target, and that's annual funding just into pavement management. Just some graphics on where we are. We can see, I noticed, so I was putting together, don't look at the data points in 08 or 09. There's some problems there that wasn't correct. But from 10, 11, and 12, these appear to be accurate. So we've increased in the amount of roads by 5% that are in good condition, but we've lost some roads that were in very good condition. We've lost some roads that were in good condition, have gone down to poor. So, right now we're losing. With the investment with the recent Measure O, we'll be able to maintain just barely our pavement condition index. And here's a look forward. Has us at a 62 in this year. This is based on a $400,000 annual budget. You can see in 5 years it dropped to a 58. We're between $400,000 and $500,000 now. So essentially, we would be maintaining this at a pavement condition level of 60 in the next 5 years based on the funding I see right now. That is my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there questions, Dennis?
Steve, where are we at on the engineering with the Stockton crossing?
We have a preliminary plan, and hope to bring that to the council in the next 6 weeks or so.
Great, thank you.
Mike?
Steve, has the Soquel Creek pumping facility ever functioned?
The wetland, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's functioned all summer. It's proven to treat the water adequately. It's certainly not at a volume to make a difference in the lagoon. We knew that when we built it, but we've proven the science works.
Okay, so it does we are using it?
Yes.
Okay.
We are. We pump water from both sides of the creek into the wetland. It filters through there and disperses back out. So.
Because the birds really, really like us right now. Really like us. And maybe some of the bird condition in the esplanade and the restaurants and the roofs, in addition to dealing with the neighbors, and maybe Public Works needs to embrace a little bit of that too. I don't know. Just a thought. It's never very happy news hearing about the pavement management index, so it's like you can't put enough money on the road. It's just crazy.
Other questions? This is a public hearing. Would anyone like to address us on this issue? Then I'll bring it back to the council. And Steve, I just wanted to have you think about something. We need to address decreasing our water use as a city, seriously. And Jamie mentioned the other day that one possibility might be putting AstroTurf on Monterey Park. I mean, I hate to say that, but it's a new world, it's a different world, and we need to be leaders in trying to show that we're decreasing our water usage. And so maybe we could in the parks improvement section, you could just take a look at that and bring us back some costs. And I'd love to do it at Jade Street Park, but since we don't own it, I hate to put any money into that.
It's a really big number. AstroTurf is a cheap word, but artificial turf right now is a really big number.
Yeah. Well, I'd like
happy to look at it.
I'd just like to get some
real
information
numbers
about
and
it.
let you know.
Yeah, I mean, in everything we're doing, we need to.
I know the Parks crew and Public Works crews are working and continually looking at our irrigation systems and trying to minimize our water use. But we do water currently 2 large playing fields, and on the medians and things like that, we've reduced it drastically. We've removed all of the turf there. So we are trying to do our best, but the 2 fields, Jade Street and Monterey Park, are big water users.
Yeah. Dennis.
Would there be any FEMA money that would be available for us on the Stockton Bridge?
Yes. Well, FEMA or federal highway money. There would definitely be grant money for the construction part of it, depending on what we do.
Does the property in front of the Hubbock buildings right there, where we do the Begonia Festival narration, and there's that little pump station where it is, does that belong to the city, or is whose?
It does.
It does?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, immediately from the bridge down. I mean, we'd have to look at the property lines, but I know.
It'd really be nice sometime in the future to look at doing something with that property. We left it unattended for so long. And one time we did the tree planting and some benches down there, but it's not maintained. There is a bit of a trip hazard there now, and
I think we do have an unfunded project in here to try and deal with that property.
Even to put a handrail up there so that people have something to hold on to when they're going down those stairs would be a huge improvement, because you want to take your out-of-town visitors down there.
Right, but we have to be careful. I remember when Daniel Kostelek cautioned us about that particular property, that if we do anything to it, we're going to have to address it under ADA, and there'll be a double switchback ramp going down there.
Like Perry Park?
Worse.
So yeah, project on page 23, project C3 is exactly doing improvements in that project.
So would it be realistic to say that we can do the improvements on the Stockton intersection this winter?
Yeah, this winter or early spring, I think that would be realistic, yes.
Okay. What other projects do you see coming in early spring, Steve?
I see 38th Avenue paving. I want to try and get that out to bid.
38th?
Yeah, see if we can get that paved.
Okay.
Clare Street traffic calming.
Yes.
I know that's a hot one. Unfortunately, the sanitation district is now looking at replacing the force main. Comes out of the Soquel Creek pump station, and it involves open cutting on Clare Street. So I'm you know. I'm
What
torn
year do they-
between completing our project and making them repave or trying to coordinate with them. But we'll be moving forward. I will be coming with a contract to finish the design and include repaving that street to get that project done, and then we can look at coordinating with the sanitation district on that.
When does the sanitation district have that scheduled for the force
Trying
main?
to get to it as quickly as they can. I think it's a next summer project.
Oh.
So it may not be too bad. It may fall in nicely with ours, or if we have to wait a couple months, I would recommend it at this point. But let's get our design done and see where they're at before we make that decision.
We have a couple other projects that we're moving forward with as well. The pay stations are going in here in the next couple of weeks.
Yes, pay station.
You may have noticed a little bit of paint around the village.
Done some numbering, and I've unfortunately, between me and my crew, we had a little communication problem, and we numbered a few spots that we weren't supposed to on Capitola Avenue. We'll be taking care of that.
How about the font size? Is it for visually impaired, those particular parking spaces?
We want to make sure they know what their number is.
It's like it's in Braille. You're going to feel it in your feet when you get out of your car.
In addition, your council will recall that when we discussed the concept of using, some recreation facilities at the McGregor property, and that process is moving forward, and you can expect to see some sort of preliminary plan coming up here later this fall, I believe, as well. So there's a number of projects kind of churning their way through process right now.
Could we consider also taking out this little bit of lawn that we have here in front and putting drought-tolerant plants in there and
We
grinding
could.
down
We
those
actually
roots
had
of the tree?
Mike Carnone, landscape
I have
architect,
a
draw
copy
up
of that.
a
It's a beautiful
revision for
plan.
the courtyard area
It's a
here to
beautiful plan.
remove those lawns. Involves quite a bit of work, but maybe we could look at something a little smaller and to remove the lawn in that area.
Yeah. And grind those roots down, because that's just a tripping hazard right there.
Yeah, I think that tree would, the plan include replacing that tree with several others to.
Could you try to cost that out a little bit? Because I talked to him about it, and he said we hadn't done a cost down. It would make the front of City Hall look gorgeous. It's really,
Be
really
happy to bring
attractive.
that forward to you
Yeah.
just to see, and some cost estimates we can talk about it.
One of our reluctances to move that forward outside of the cost has also been, unfortunately that tree is it's a big tree. It's doing a lot of damage. How does the council feel about the importance of that tree?
Maybe you
as
can
an
bring it
iconic
back in
tree?
another meeting, and we can think about
Okay,
it
I'm
and
just
talk about
sort
it.
of-
Separate item.
Okay. I
Yeah.
was curious if we could get a little bit of feedback if
And the
design
time
around
the time
tree or not.
capsule's underneath there too, I think. And
is it?
Somewhere.
I thought it was at the
Oh.
flagpole. This is the flagpole. isn't
Oh,
it?
maybe it's a flagpole. Yeah.
Nobody
Ed
knows.
Morrison knows where
Nobody
it is,
knows.
I think.
I know where it is.
Time to dig it up.
But yeah, that lawn there is just not used. Wastewater.
The rabbit hole in there.
It's whatever we can do, I think, if we're going to ask the citizens to cut way back on watering, we need to do the same thing too, and just be an example, good
I'd
example.
motion to approve the 5-year capital improvement program.
Second.
And with great thanks to the Public Works Department for all their hard work on developing all of these. And any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you very much. Great work.
We could just talk about streets forever. We love that stuff. Oh, here comes trouble.
No, not so bad.
Good evening again,
Good
Madam
evening.
Mayor,
Good
council
evening.
members. Next item on tonight's agenda is the parking meter rates and zones, LCP amendment, and proposed coastal commission amendments to the ordinance. As you recall, the City Council approved amendments to the municipal code and local coastal program in December of 2012. That process would enable the city to modify its parking meter rates and zones with a conditional use, a coastal development permit, rather than amending the local coastal program. That process would streamline the process that we're currently going through. It would limit the review to Coastal Commission staff. There would be no Coastal Commission hearing. And typically, that would save us approximately 6 months of processing time with our coastal permits. The Coastal Commission approved the LCP with amendments on August 15th, 2013. However, they did add some amended language, which basically requires that any time the city were to amend parking meters, rate zones, or other standards, that we make a finding that public access to the coast would not be impaired. And if it were, then mitigation measures would need to be implemented to offset any adverse effects to public access. Those mitigation measures could require the city to maintain at current levels, expand or enhance the city's free park and ride shuttle service, and or requirements to maintain at current levels, expand and or enhance free and low-cost public parking access in areas conducive to providing easy access to the shoreline and village area, such as through expansion of the Pacific Cove parking area. It could also require the city to reduce existing negative public access impacts associated with existing parking zones, time limits, hours of operations, fees and or standards, for example, reducing or eliminating fees in certain areas to offset changes elsewhere. And then all such coastal development permits would be accompanied by substantial evidence showing that public access to the coast would not be impaired. So with the proposed change, as we envision the process, every time we made a change to our parking standards, we'd have to ask the question and confer with Coastal Commission staff on whether or not the changes would adversely affect coastal access. If the answer was no, the city could issue a coastal development permit, and if it were not appealed, that would be the end. We would have our approval. If the answer were yes, on the other hand, that access would be impaired, then we'd be going through those steps to identify appropriate mitigation to improve access elsewhere, and those could include maintaining or enhancing free and low-cost parking, a free park and ride shuttle service, or eliminate parking fees elsewhere in the city. Staff is recommending approval of the amendments. The basis of our recommendation is that the Coastal Commission already has broad discretion over any change to parking standards today. And the Commission may add conditions to any coastal development permit or LCP amendment to avoid impacts to public access. In discussions with the Commission, they have agreed that modest inflationary changes to meter rates would not adversely affect public access. So, changes that we would routinely make in a 5 or 10 year period to keep up with inflation would not trigger the need to go through this mitigation or offsetting process. And as well as the proposed amendment does contain permissive language, which allows the city to propose measures to mitigate impacts to public access. Those measures that were in the permit that we went through in the previous slide aren't necessarily, we don't have to do all of those, we wouldn't necessarily have to do any of those. We'd have to come up with some measure to ensure that public access is still maintained. That concludes my presentation, and we are available for questions.
Thank you. Other questions, Mike?
I have real concerns about the interpretation of the language with our free shuttle versus free parking. For us to create free parking anywhere in the city is next to nil as a possibility. And I'm concerned about the language, the way that you may have interpreted the Coastal Commission's instructions to us. So what is the staff's feeling about our latitude on this? I mean, I have no problem expanding our free beach shuttle, but the idea of creating anything in either our Pacific Cove lots or parking structure or city streets is, increased free parking makes me shudder for all of our neighborhoods. Not to mention the possibility of ever getting enough money for our parking structure.
Right. I think, we initially shared a lot of the concerns that we've heard about the language. It wasn't certainly what we were hoping as an outcome. We did discuss the language with staff for a number of weeks. We negotiated the language we have today to something that we thought we could live with. In terms of the free park and ride shuttle, as they've described it, the language is that we maintain it. My view is that it's not necessarily, if we were to provide a shuttle service from a lot that had meters, I don't know that would trigger a need to provide free parking elsewhere.
So that brings me back to your flow chart. Maybe you could roll back to that. The required mitigation, maintaining and enhancing the park and ride shuttle is fine. To reduce, eliminate parking fees elsewhere, I don't understand how that fits in our city whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, again, how the language reads is that it gives 3 options of ways that you could mitigate adverse impacts to coastal access. And it says may include but not be limited to. So theoretically, we could come up with other measures. But again, I think it's important to note that you don't even go down that path for, I think, typical changes. If it's a modest increase in rates, a change to a zone, I think what they're really looking at and their concern is that if there was a substantial change, which would really make it difficult for the average person to come visit the beach because the rates were just too high, then we'd need to compensate elsewhere.
Okay. Are we up to our discretion? Because there are only 2 options. There's our public parking that's metered, and there's every neighbor in front of every neighbor's house in this entire city. Those are really the only 2 places.
Or take the shuttle bus from
From
the lot.
Well, I know, but I'm saying for it to be free, there's only one place for it to be free. That's in all the neighborhoods.
Well, unless we happen to need to or happen to maintain the lot at the post office and run a shuttle from there, then that's free from there. But I don't think we're going to do that. You know. Sam?
Rich, does the Coastal Commission audit our coastal development permits?
We have to report. So we send them our coastal development permits, and they have 10 days to appeal.
So all the CDPs actually have to be sent to the Coastal Commission?
The appealable CDPs, the inland ones, I'm not sure whether they do or not, but the appealable ones do. And this proposal would require an appealable CDP for these changes.
Right. So in effect, the Coastal Commission will be looking over our shoulders for almost every CDP that we issue.
Yeah, I don't know that it's any different than today. I mean, the process we have in place today is we submitted a local coastal program amendment, so the staff looks at it, then it goes up through their management chain and ultimately to the commission. So there's really more layers with the existing process, and it takes longer. And I think that's the advantage that we think that it's worth going down this path, notwithstanding some of this language that, frankly, I don't think we feel is ideal either, but it's probably a better of 2 situations.
But this language that's being imposed on the CDP actually adds maybe new requirements upon us, or new interpretations of the requirements of accessibility, which we don't currently live under with the LCP process.
Well, there is some additional language in this. You're right. I did provide some language in the LCP. One of the primary policies is that City of Capitola maintain and enhance access to Capitola Beach, Village, the Wharf, while maintaining and enhancing the existing character of Capitola Village. Much of that language is similar to what we're seeing tonight. The Coastal Commission has broad discretion. Parking is considered a development to them. So any change we make, I don't know that this provides them any more authority than they have today, but certainly there is more language than the current process has.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Dennis?
I've always felt like the Coastal Commission was a little over our head when we deal with it. And a stack of attorneys probably helps them on their end. But I mean, maybe this is something that if we took time, it's worth doing a little battle on, and actually going back and asking them what we really want again, and having some good legal representation. Maybe John could give us advice on that, on what our legal grounds are on this thing, and ask for a better deal. I don't see at this point, besides Pacific Cove, as it being urgent to actually make a decision in the next 2 months. In other words, if we had 2 more months to battle this, we may come up with a better deal than we have now.
Council members, I think the way this process would work at this point is that at this point this is the language the Commission itself has adopted, and really our choice is either a thumbs up or thumbs down vote on this specific language, and we have 6 months to do that. The way to sort of continue to negotiate, if you will, would be at this point would be to submit a new LCP amendment with, presumably this language with maybe a minor tweak or two to it if we found some way to to make it more acceptable to the city. And then it would go back through the staff process and then back up to the Coastal Commission, and we could see whether we could get it done. I think that if that was a path you wanted to pursue, my suggestion would be let's focus in on what the key language and changes would be. We can have a conversation with the commission staff and see about the chances of success. Because we can't, effectively, we can't negotiate this language with staff per se on this amendment. We'd have to submit a new amendment to their board for consideration. And I do want to point out one of the points that Rich made about, sort of the question of the review cycles. And actually, this LCP in and of itself exhibits some of the challenges with LCP amendments. You'll recall our former community development director, Susan Westman, when she was here, submitted the LCP amendment we gave to the Coastal Commission to do this, and the staff assurances that we received at that time was, looks good, city. You're on the right track. And unfortunately, as it made its way through the management chain, different planners came up with different reads. It grew this language and it got attached to it. And so the nice thing is that under the proposed process that we have the option of accepting today, that first read within 10 days it's done. They don't get a chance to to kind of come back and relook at it and relook at it and relook at it. And you don't end up in front of the Coastal Commission, which sometimes you can get bit because there's an issue in Venice Beach that, the commission...
Was it Dan Carl that actually put this together?
The language was negotiated with... we have a new coastal planner,
Karen Geiser is a coastal planner. She reports to Susan Craig, and then, of course, their managers look at it. Who created the language, I really don't know.
But Susan Craig was our planner, and she's been now elevated, I think, into Dan Carl's old position. And I think Dan has moved up the ladder as well. So just to be clear, so the options tonight are accept the language, reject the language. Alternatively, we could continue the hearing with some direction about what are the key changes we would like to see. We could have a conversation about with coastal staff to see, what do they think they would do with this if we were to submit it as a new LCP amendment.
And Dennis, I share your concerns, but apparently our staff was able to change it from shall to may. So that line that says where such measures may include but not be limited to. And I think it's broad enough that we can work with it. It's not perfect, but it's 100 times better than the other system.
Yes, I
And
agree
where
with
it
that.
says requirements may include but not be limited to requirements to maintain at current levels, expand and or enhance the city's free park and ride shuttle service. Just maintain it at the current levels. We can do that. We're actually going to expand it because we're going to have it close, have it come from the parking lot right here, which may pick up more people than at the post office. I don't know how many people are getting picked up by the post office.
But the free parking is being eliminated.
Right.
This would seem to dictate that the free parking has to be retained.
No, I don't think so. I think that there's, again, back to the interpretation of free parking versus free shuttle, and I think that the accessible and affordable parking rates, even if we take them to 75 cents, would be reasonable. I don't know that we want to do battle with the Coastal Commission or all 1 million of their lawyers they have at their disposal. Not for us. I think that this is maybe a first step. We may want to go back in, but I think we've got a foothold in control of our parking. And I'm sure someone, possibly from the Traffic and Parking Commission, may weigh in on this tonight. Who knows?
Mr. Westman.
Is the public hearing open?
Yes.
I was afraid you were going to decide without actually opening the public hearing.
No.
I have a couple of prepared comments, but I just wanted to say that the discussion about the shuttle bus is a perfect example of why this required language that the Coastal Commission wants to insert is dangerous, because the Coastal Commission's required language is the city's free park and ride shuttle system. I don't think we have a free park and ride shuttle system. We may have a free ride, but not a free park. So you need to get a clarification from the Coastal Commission that we can charge for parking wherever the shuttle is based. And secondly, with all respect to the Coastal Commission, I don't think how we operate our shuttle system outside of the hours of the neighborhood permit parking system is in effect is any of their business. If we want to expand the shuttle system and operate it 7 days a week, take it up to 41st Avenue, whatever the city wants to do with the shuttle system, outside of those hours, which are the summer weekends, it's none of their business. But if you accept this language, it is their business. And you will be justifying everything you want to do. Like if you want to charge 25 cents for the shuttle on Wednesdays, you're going to have to justify it to the Coastal Commission. Anyway. So I did have a chance to meet with Rich and Steve during the last couple of weeks about this, and they took the time and they were very helpful, and I understand the quandary that they're in. And I don't really have an answer, but the far-reaching nature of these requirements that the Coastal Commission wants, coupled with the absolute lack of any specifics, makes me very nervous. Not only about the Coastal Commission, but also these are perfect weapons for anybody to fight anything. Doesn't have to be a particularly sophisticated person to read those and use those as a weapon against any traffic and parking changes in the city. I mean, we're like opening ourselves up to litigation here. So I may be whistling Dixie, but if it were up to me, here's what I would do. I would withdraw this application right now. And when you withdraw it, all of these requirements go away. And then I would immediately submit a brand new application to the Coastal Commission to expand the meter zones in Pacific Cove into the new temporary parking lot and to charge 75 cents parking in all of Pacific Cove. And the reason for expanding the parking meters and the reason for the rate increase is to pay the over $1 million. It is going to cost the city to build 230 brand new, close to the village, public parking places, which is like the Coastal Commission's wet dream. So there is no way that they are going to turn you down, and there is no way that they're going to heap on all of these global requirements when all you're trying to do is build more parking and charge just enough money, a very reasonable 75 cents an hour, to pay the bill. And then you will buy time. You don't have all these requirements. A year and a half from now, I don't know what it's going to be, but you're going to have to do battle, big battle, with the Coastal Commission over your local coastal plan. Do not go into that negotiation having already accepted all of these requirements and having essentially both of your hands tied behind your back as far as parking is concerned. I mean, you have no negotiating position when that time comes. So let's see if I hit all my points, because I'm sure my time is up. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak on this? And I'll close the public hearing and bring it back. Mike?
Another question for staff. Rather than accept this tonight, can we return not with a new application, but with a clarification on this?
I think we can certainly reach out to Coastal Commission staff and see if they'll provide some kind of clarification.
At least clarification with regard to our current project, which is to provide another 270 coastal access parking spaces.
Yeah, we can certainly try to get clarification from them. They may be a little bit reticent, given that the Commission provided the language. Staff may not want to touch it or offer interpretation. We can certainly try.
Well, I would maybe add that we ask the staff to try, but if you are not successful, authorize them to withdraw this application and to resubmit a new one, because that's, I think, the quickest procedure to go through without having to come back to us at each stage. So that's what I would recommend.
I don't think we're going to be in any more trouble at the same time continuing with our project over there, applying or asking staff to clarify and still putting in our parking stations than we would be if we accepted this language and did the same thing. Follow what I'm saying? So we proceed as we were, but at the same time we get this tightened up.
My suggestion at this point would be that we, if this is the direction we'd like to go down, that what we do is we continue this hearing. We'll meet with staff. We'll try to get some clarification. And it sounds like we're focused on the first bullet point on the previous slide, the free park and ride shuttle service.
Is it free park or,
Right.
or the free ride?
Right.
Because there are park and ride installations where you still pay for parking, but it's a free ride from the park and ride lot. So, which is
That
what
would
we
be
provide.
the key point to seek their clarification about, get their input, we could bring it back to you. Unfortunately, staff doesn't have the authority to take up Coastal Commission, an LCP amendment, so we would have to actually come back and have your council adopt. I think that there's a resolution authorizing the submittal that we have to include. So what we would do is continue this out 2 weeks and bring it back and report on sort of the input that we got from the commission staff, and then we can make a decision about whether we want to proceed with this LCP amendment, drop it entirely, or submit something new.
Okay. Just also in the second sentence, where it refers to maintaining current levels, expand in or enhance free and low-cost public parking access in areas conducive to providing easy access to the shoreline village areas, such as through expansion of the Pacifico parking area. So unless we're ready to provide for free and low-cost public parking, we should also try to negotiate that language as well.
And I think by anyone's standard, 75 cents an hour is a low-cost
Certainly
parking
low
program at
cost,
the beach.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah, I actually do think that's what they were talking about, is that if we were to build a structure there, that's, I think they were trying to support that actually with this language. But we can do that, and Rich just reminded me he's out at our next meeting, so we'd be continuing this for a month and bringing it back at that point.
I would like to move continuation of this item for date certain, which is not the next meeting, but the second meeting in October.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, the last item is the consider an ordinance in lieu parking fee
Slip it
program, item E.
Thank you, Mayor Harlan. So the concept of an in lieu parking fee program, as you all recall, has been discussed over the past 15 months or so in conjunction with the Lower Pack Cove improvement project for the temporary parking lot. On July 26, 2012, at your council hearing, the council considered Lower Pack Cove development options and selected the full parking alternative. And as part of that, there was a provision for an in lieu parking fee program. Subsequently, on March 28, 2013, at your City Council hearing, you approved financing to construct the 233-space Lower Pack Cove lot, which would address the current 176-space village parking deficit and provide 57 surplus spaces for an in lieu parking fee program. At that time, staff projected that they would be able to bring an in lieu parking program to the council in the summer of 2013. So as an overview, the in lieu parking fee program would be an administrative policy to allow eligible projects to purchase off-site parking spaces in lieu of providing on-site parking. Some of the high-level details that we are proposing was that the parking area would be located in the Upper Pack Cove lot due to funding restrictions with the Lower Pack Cove site. The service area would be limited to the Central Village zoning district, and participation in the program would be limited to hotel uses as defined by the municipal code. Participation costs, we base those on the parking structure construction cost, plus the cost of land, plus CPI, and an annual maintenance fee. We would propose that any revenue collected from the program be deposited into an exclusive parking trust fund, and that operation and enforcement would be managed by program participants. So again, the service area, we thought that it would only apply to the Central Village zoning district. The service area could be further restricted to the Central Village district outside of the residential overlay zone, or conversely, it could be expanded to areas surrounding the village if the council desired. Eligible use types, again, we defined them as being hotels as defined by the municipal code, but that is a pretty broad definition. It would allow a variety of transient use types: hotels, motels, bed and breakfasts, vacation rentals, and those sorts of transient uses. The Traffic and Parking Committee, when we met with them, they recommended that only large hotels be eligible to participate in the program. They suggested maybe a number of 30 or more rooms. They were vehemently opposed to residential or other smaller visitor-serving uses participating, such as restaurants, retail stores. There are options for the eligible use types, of course. You could do any hotel type as we propose, set it only for large hotels, or you could expand it to accommodate other visitor-serving use types. Participation costs, we went back and forth quite a bit on trying to define a figure that we thought was appropriate, and we came up with two options. The first would be a one-time payment option, a lump sum that comes out to $29,044 a space. That again would be based on the parking structure construction cost, CPI, land cost, and an additional $200 annual maintenance fee. If all 57 spaces were sold at that rate, the city could expect to receive $1,655,000 in total revenue. We also came up with an annual payment option. Under this option, per space cost would be $1,500 and $72 per year. That would be based on a 40-year payment schedule. And if all 57 spaces were sold under that option, the city could expect to receive approximately $3.5 million in total revenue. And in that option would also include the $200 annual maintenance fee. In terms of administration and operation, we would collect the parking fees prior to issuance of grading or building permits for development projects. And again, we deposit those into an interest-bearing account which was set aside to exclusively finance future parking facilities. Operation and enforcement, we envision that the area would be restricted for use by participants, guests, and employees, and that the parking area would be secured, monitored, and enforced by program participants. So we think there's a number of benefits to going forward with the program. It would reduce village traffic by taking some of those trips off the village roadways that are seeking parking. It would encourage economic development in the village by alleviating parking difficulties, enable improved design more consistent with the village character by, again, removing the requirements to park in the village. And it would also, of course, provide needed revenue for future parking facilities. So accordingly, we do recommend that the council adopt an administrative policy to establish an in-lieu parking fee program and direct staff to return with a resolution to amend the city fee schedule to establish in-lieu parking fees. And that concludes my presentation.
Are there questions? Mike?
Your 40-year payment plan for this, does it include any kind of debt service or, consideration to the city? Because I know you're looking for a stream to finance a bond for the final parking structure. Are we giving someone just 40 years to pay the principal? Or are we going to apply the bond rate and term to it as well?
The figure was generated based on a 40-year amortization, I think at 4.5%. So it's a number, and it was how it was generated. $1,500 a year is what that comes to. The reason behind the 40-year payment cycle was just that the thought was that when we do issue debt for the parking structure, we're going to be issuing 30-year debt. I don't think we're planning on doing it in the next year or two, so trying to sync up the end of those payments with the end of the debt service for the structure. Obviously, if you picked a different interest rate, 5-6%, payment would be higher. Lower interest rate, the payment would be lower.
If we tied it to whatever the bond rate was at the time that we built the structure?
Certainly possible. We're getting a little bit outside my area of expertise. I was imagining what we would do is record basically a Mello-Roos benefit assessment district to do this, if this was the way we did it, just to really formalize the payments, so that basically it was a foreclosable tax. And I don't know whether you can leave the interest rate basically floating in that, or whether you have to define it up front.
Okay.
We can research that and
Thank
come
you.
back.
Yeah, Jimmy, you said a foreclosable tax? What would you foreclose on?
If it wasn't paid, you'd have the right to foreclose on the hotel, the project.
The property?
Property, yes. So let me explain that a little bit more clearly, what I mean by that. There are certain fees, for example, a business license, where an individual comes into the city and pays it, and if they don't pay it, Eventually you probably get caught, but it's not it's a relatively informal process. And what we were proposing for this was a very enforceable process, basically adding a tax, if you will, to the property owner's assessment that they would pay each and every year. And so by doing that, there's sort of an independent structure, if you will, that assures the payment, and if it isn't paid, their taxes become delinquent. If your taxes get delinquent enough, obviously you can lose the property.
Just one follow-up question, Mayor. If concerning that the applicants would be required to submit a plan to secure, monitor, and enforce the use of purchased parking spaces, what do you envision that type of enforcement would be? In other words, how do we make sure or require that they actually park there instead of just paying this $1,500 and then parking wherever they want?
We envision that a portion of the parking lot would be cordoned off in some manner, have a gate or a key card that guests would receive when they check in. They would come up here. The hotel.
I understand all that it would be dedicated spaces, monitored and secured, but it's just how do you make sure that the merchants or the hotel is actually using these spaces instead of parking in the village, parking in the neighborhoods?
I think by and large it would be an incentive for them to take those spaces. They'd be free of charge. They'd be available. I think most hotels, at least the larger ones, would have some type of valet service that would bring them up there. So I think for most consumers it would probably be the easiest mode of parking down here.
Okay.
Dennis?
First question is, why is it essential to actually define the 57 spaces to any use at this point? We really don't have an applicant or use for it at that point. Can't this be subject to demand? And it seems to me the first step should really be to form a parking district. In other words, including the defined village area and the parking structures that we have, or potential parking structures. Create the district, and then you're assured that the money stream and the money goes to the right source. And maybe there's other ideas within the village as a trade-off or a buyout of spaces that could work. I don't know why you would want to eliminate restaurants from it, but if the suggestion is that it being only hotels, I don't see at this point or this day right now that we have a need for someone to come in and buy 57 spaces for a hotel. It may be 10 years from now, 5 years, or whatever, it may happen. But I don't know that we have to make that decision at this point. I think we have 57 spaces that could stay there in the bank. I can think of a few uses in the village that would help the village prosper by being able to buy into that. Particularly with some of the restaurants that are been so confined for years from being able to improve their properties because of not having spaces. So have we looked in the past of doing a parking district of the village in our parking areas? Is that something feasible? That actually expands the ability for us to raise money for a parking structure if we do that.
So by parking district, I'm interpreting it to mean that basically we formed some sort of special assessment district, and each individual business property owner would pay into that assessment district pursuant to some formula based on square footage, based on use type, lot area, something like that, would pay into the city then to provide parking. Is that what you're?
That's correct. And then in producing a bank for that, you're also producing the ability to provide more parking, which is to the benefit of the village and the community.
So you'll recall in some of the models that we put together for financing for a parking structure project that some sort of parking assessment district was a component of that. When we've looked at this, and this has been pretty informal examinations by staff, it doesn't look as if there's a capacity to generate a huge amounts of money from that. But I think it could be important money in terms of demonstrating the business's commitment to the process as well. It requires a vote, and they may be controversial. So I view that as, I'd suggest that it's an independent process from this. This is really, if you will, claiming these 57 spaces that the city has fulfilled its beach access parking obligations, and we have 57 spaces that are available for economic development, for recreation, for whatever use that the council decides it's appropriate for. And so my suggestion would be to parking district is probably a separate thing and would be a question that we would want to think hard about asking, and eventually we'd have to either put it into a mail out or some sort of ballot measures that individuals could vote on.
You know, one property that comes to mind for me is the Mercantile property, underutilized, unperforming, central to the village, and maybe an economic key to the improvement someday in the village. That it doesn't have any possibility of doing anything with it than what you have there because of the parking requirements that we have on that property. Now, that's not a hotel. It could be partially someday be a hotel. But you will never, you need something to give the incentive of the property owners to invest, and they need to have, they can't provide any more parking in the village. They have to have some kind of trade-off. And so by closing the door and giving it only to hotels, it doesn't expand the economic viability of all the businesses down there, I think.
I have a different take on that, and I think that we do need to pay attention, especially the restaurants. They're hamstrung by the way that we apply parking spaces per square foot. I think we need to revamp that. We've talked about it before. It needs to happen. I don't think this is the way. We can, you know, sidestep around it. The whole reason we're doing this is for the Village Hotel at the theater parking lot. Is there any other place where there's going to be a 30-room hotel anywhere in our village? No. So that's basically what this is for. There are 57 spaces. I have no burning desire to offer them a payment plan. If they're going to build a $20 million hotel, I think 3 of those millions can just come to us. One check, save a lot of time. The Mercantile is another story, and it does bear some close inspection. I think that I tend to lean towards large hotels only, and I'm definitely not in favor of bed and breakfasts and transient rentals. It's crazy to include those in this. But maybe there's a way to word this in such a way that something that happens in the Mercantile might also participate in this. So I'm not looking at these 57 to be onesie twosied out. I'm looking for 25,000 per space for a 12-unit hotel at the Mercantile.
And a parking assessment was done when we purchased and turned the upper parking lot into the mobile home park into a parking lot. It was going to be financed with a third from parking meters, a third from the city, and a third from assessments from the businesses.
And most of the village businesses are fine with the parking, and to burden them with another tax is just uncalled for. Public hearing?
Yes. Public hearing. Who would like to speak on this issue? Good evening again.
Good evening again. I'm Nels Westman. It seems to me that there are really 2 in-lieu systems under consideration for the village. One allows the opportunity for a village hotel on the theater property to supply a significant portion of its required parking in dedicated spaces out of the village core. They have to provide customers with seamless 24/7, 365 access to their cars, probably with a valet system. The other is when the city takes cash payoffs, basically, to allow more construction and more intensification in the village, and then essentially just dumps those parkers into the competition with village residents and merchants and locals and beachgoers for those poor few existing woefully inadequate on-street spaces in the village. That latter approach only worsens what is already a dismal parking situation, and this is exactly what your Traffic and Parking Commission is recommending against. They are asking you not to make a bad situation even worse. The rules for the in-lieu program need to be tightly written to apply only to a larger project with broad benefit to the village and the city, and to ensure that the customers have easy access to their cars so they will not park in the village. The city's offering of an easy finance 40-year program is unwise and unnecessary and only encourages little onesie-twosie projects that slowly erode away the parking supply and really only function to line the pockets of developers and consultants. what village property owner wouldn't jump at the chance to add 600 or 800 square foot of pure revenue-generating square footage to their building by paying $1,572 a year to get out of its requirement to supply a parking space. I mean, it's just ridiculously short-sighted. And for a hotel, Jesse Nickel told me, if the hotel were to buy in lieu spaces to meet their parking requirements, that comes out of the construction funding right up front. You don't pay that out of your operational expenses year in and year out. Cleaning the parking space, $200 a year, yeah, maybe so, but not buying it. So for a big operator, pay up front. Any in lieu program should be undertaken in the context of a parking structure, not for surface parking. We are about to use 6 acres to park 464 cars. That is a criminal waste of precious real estate, and particularly when we know we can park 550 cars in 2.3 acres in a parking structure. You need to show vision and position the city for success. Selling off surface parking creates another obstacle to permanent solutions to our parking shortage. The comment has been made, we need to somehow reserve 57 spaces to keep our options open in the future. Not so. The upper lot is 234 spaces. The temporary lot is 230 spaces. That's 464 spaces. A parking structure designed by Rotary is 550 spaces. That leaves 86 brand new, never before used by the public, never before considered by the Coastal Commission spaces sitting on top of the parking structure available for an in lieu program for a hotel. So there is no reason to take those 57 spaces out of the mix now. And furthermore, this is where I get a little emotional, but you want to take 57 premium paved spaces in the upper lot and sell those off to the highest bidder, push the public out way down into the lower parking lot, into a parking lot that is essentially, at Dennis's request or urging, made out of gravel that is purposely designed to deteriorate so that in between 3 and 5 years it will be unusable as a guarantee that it will only be a temporary lot. I mean, that's cruel and unusual to the public. We've used that paved parking lot for 30 years. So those should absolutely be preserved for public parking and not sold off to the highest bidder. I'm getting to the end. And finally, the program just needs, and I agree with Mike, the program needs to be focused on creating an opportunity for the city to have a quality, well-designed village hotel. So in summary, a focused program. 2, in the context of a parking structure only. 3, no 40-year easy finance option. 4, no jumping the gun with designating 57 spaces in the upper cove for sale. And 5, tighten the rules to prevent onesie-twosie pay-to-play deals. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to speak? Then I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the council.
Well, like I said, I like the large hotel idea. You know, we could make it a slightly smaller hotel to open up the possibility of something at the Mercantile, but the 57 spaces, upper lot, lower lot, you know, I think that by the time any kind of village hotel happens, them just paying for these spaces somewhere, somehow, I think we'll have the money in our pocket long before we have a paved parking space for them to actually use or for them to be ready to use. So I'm in favor of it, hotels only, not for restaurants, not for bed and breakfast, not for transient rentals. The size, 20 rooms minimum. I don't know if we need to even put that on there. No payment plan unless it's tied to the bond, and that's about it. I think that what we need to keep in mind is upon the exercising of those 57 spaces for the village hotel, for the theater hotel, that has to be our jumping off point for building the parking structure. We will never be more ready. So we have to be prepared to accept that If someone were to write us the check for those 57 spaces, say, okay, here's my hotel design, it's been approved, here's your money for the 57 spaces, we want the grading permit, it's time for us to commit. It's parking structure time. That's it.
Want to go next?
Sure. Couple points. First point of clarification. The Lower Pacific parking lot was created for us, or was created so we can do a test to see that we have adequate parking in the village, and I think that's essential. We have to look at that first to see, does this solve our parking problem? I don't really feel good about any other program now that's going to dig into giving those parcels away. I'm really clear about what Mike has said and what I think was alluded to by Mr. Westman, and that is the intent is to build a hotel in the village because that is what I believe is going to help revitalize the village. It's not about bed and breakfast. It's not about ones and twos. I don't think we even need to address that. We don't need to worry about that happening. What needs to happen is there needs to be a number. The spots, if they're going to be sold, this is a form of us committing to a builder to come in to town to build a hotel, to build a large hotel. When I say large, the number, we could talk all day on the number. The Parking Commission picked the number of 30. Mike mentioned, 30 is a fine number. Okay, I think that gives us, we don't know what size that building's going to be, but 30 precludes any of these other issues from even coming into play. Okay, I'm not about, it says in here we can even have apartment houses based on this code and hotels. Like, that's not what these spaces are for. The parking structure is not going to be built unless we have money from a hotel vendor. I'm not closed to financing for that hotel vendor. My goal is to get someone who's serious about building a hotel, a large-scale hotel, committing to those places and us having those available. I just don't see us coming up with the revenue to build that structure prior to someone wanting to build a hotel. I think it's important we work with that person. And like I said, once the hotel structure is built, those places will be part of the structure, and there will be an abundance of places at that time where I think we're in a better position to deal with the other plans and the relief that the restaurants and the other shops need for those other places. So I'm somewhat in concurrence with Mike here with hotel only, a number of 30. I'm not tied to with financing or not. I could live with that. My goal here is to appeal to a hotel builder to come in and get a project going so we can have a hotel and commit to building the structure.
Thank you. Sam?
Thank you, Mayor. I think it should be limited to a hotel that has a valet parking, because otherwise you're just dumping more utilization and parking in the village with no assurance that these in-lieu spaces are going to be used. As a matter of fact, you can say any business that has valet parking and fully operates and utilizes it may be beneficial, may provide more funding for the parking structure trust fund. But if we're not going that far, I think it should be limited to valet hotels. And I don't frankly care what size they may be, 150. But you got to have that type of service to be able to utilize this program. And in terms of the financing, I think I'm kind of mixed about whether or not that should be addressed now, and I don't know if we should take that off the table. Certainly when the time comes, based on what our bonding costs are and what the developer, what their financing structure may be, as long as they're willing to at least match plus a point or two, a percentage or two to cover administrative costs, it may be ultimately to our benefit relative to what we need to bond. Now, if they're not in that position, then they need to cover us up front, so we're not incurring that debt to kickstart the project. I think that could be left on the table, but made sure that it's negotiated in a manner that is in the best interest of the city. And if a developer's not willing to do that, then just have them write the check there on the spot. So those are my thoughts on it. I think it seems to me that maybe the staff should be directed to go back and kind of take in our comments and and look at the in-lieu program and bring it back to us. Thank you.
Dennis?
This is the first conversation I've heard where people are talking 30 rooms. That's a new one to me. I'd never heard less than 60. But I'm not saying that that is a possibility there. But it certainly cuts your funding in half of what was really needed for a parking garage for a second story, or second or third story. The way this hotel has been proposed and has been successful, such as with Holcomb's project at Seascape, is that these units go for sale. In other words, you put them on the market and you actually fund your project by selling off these units. Well, if that is the case, then the funding option should always be that you pay the full amount up front. In other words, when you buy, if one of those units sell, it should be paid off in full there. There shouldn't be any financing in that point. I agree with Sam. I don't know that we need to choke over this part of it right now. This conversation was a little different than I thought tonight. I didn't know it was really based around the hotel only. I thought it was making the village viable and offering services to businesses down there, property owners, to improve their properties. You still get the same amount whether you do a 10 unit as you do a 20 unit. Maybe it's only possible to do a larger 30 unit if you save them all. But if you are doing that, you're probably talking, you could be talking 8 or 9 years before you get 1 penny in the bank. While if you did a little piecemeal work, or you allowed a certain amount of them to go out, you would be collecting some revenue on those projects. You know, I think of a number of places within the village that that could use TREP, including restaurants. I mean, the observation that you pay less is not true. You pay the same amount. You're going to pay, if you need to expand your business, you're still going to pay the $29,000 for every parking spot that's required, unless we do something, as you said, Michael, to change the ordinance and make it possible to do that. Coastal Commission has never allowed us to do that. They've always said you've got to provide. So somewhere you've got to account for those spaces that you're going to give out to it. And Crusoe's, Thai Basil, right down the line, I can tell you restaurants that falter today because of the fact that we put a chokehold on it. And in turn, it puts a chokehold on the whole village because of that. If we're just talking money for hotel, I'm not going to go against that. That's fine. My intent is to free the village of automobiles, and one way you can do that is to build a 3-story parking garage behind her, and I want to go as quickly as possible in that direction. I'm okay with that. I think this part here could probably wait. We could give a direction that we want full payment, but we could maybe in the future offer some kind of deals for interest payments. Is nice to have over long term on a parking structure too. So there's money to be made with the lending on this too. So, okay.
I think we should just kind of leave some of those numbers blank because we don't know what the costs are going to be in 10 years if this happens, or 5 years, or 15 years. And we should consider it at that time. And I don't think we have to put numbers on that right now. I mean, we know what the land costs are and we know what the per space costs are today, but this is so hypothetical. This brings me back to the RISPN stuff that we spent so much time and energy on that. And I really don't want to spend a whole lot of time and energy on theoretical things because they're just what ifs. And be great to have a hotel there. That would be wonderful. But somebody may come in and buy that property and want to do retail restaurant, or who knows what, retail restaurant housing, who knows. So I think we have to kind of keep an open mind about it and about our parking needs and so forth, and willing to go along with this. But I think we don't have enough information right now, I think, to really do any good planning. It's all very hypothetical, and it may or may not happen, and we'll see. We'll see where the city is at that time and who our partners might be, and so it'll be. I think it's just kind of up in the air, but I think if we're going to sell spaces, we should do it. They should pay up at full rate, whatever we decide that rate is at that time. Not put it in the staff report now, then they're going to say, well, you said it was only going to be 29. Why do you think it's going to be? Why would it be more?
In the interest of inspiring a hotel operator to put an application in for a hotel in the village, can we, first of all, say large hotels only, not specify a number, it can come back to us. Not put in a payment plan. If one needs to be negotiated, it can come back to us. And the cost of each parking space, do we need to put a specific number in, or can it be predicated on, at the time of their application, what the current cost of the construction of a parking structure would be per parking space? Follow what I'm saying? So if it doesn't come to us for 8 years, and it's $32,000 a space, that's what it is. If it comes to us in 3 years and it's $24,000, that's what it is. Does that fit into this scheme?
It's certainly an option. I mean, I think number one is designating that we have these spaces available and designating what types of uses the council is interested in seeing them go for. I think we've got that direction at this point. Our thought was to come back with an amendment to the fee schedule to define sort of the fee. I think
that's probably premature.
Well, it's a fair point. Is that presuming we're talking about a hotel on the site down there in the village, there's a number of things that they're going to need the city to do, and there's a number of things that they can do for the city. They're going to be looking at off-site improvements, encroachment permits, potentially changes to Esplanade Park, water, parking. So, frankly, I think that's probably acceptable.
Okay.
That, that the city
it was
will
also my
establish
intention to include the valet parking in it, because Sam's point's very well taken, that if we have specified spaces, we want the hotel to control them, to fill them, and not just to have guests park in the spaces that they haven't paid for. Even though they're putting quarters in the meter, that doesn't cut it.
That's a good point.
Sound right?
No, valet's fine.
That's my motion.
I'll second that.
So,
You want them to repeat that?
no, I'm pretty good. The question is are we adopting it tonight, or are we going to bring the policy back with these elements?
I think it would warrant coming back with these elements. Well, we've given you pretty specific instructions on large hotels only, valet only, based on the cost of the structure at the time, full payment unless a payment program is negotiated and it comes back to the council to be approved.
Would it be fair to include a price at this time today?
No, only because this is today's price. If concrete goes up to $300 a yard tomorrow because of a shortage of
I was just thinking
whatever,
of the baseline.
We know. I think any contractor developer is going to know roughly what neighborhood they're in. We don't need to put specific numbers in, but I think we can put in language based on the construction of the parking structure, which would inspire us or a future council, if and when this happens, to actually go to build it when this happens, because they want to lock that price in and start with it and get moving on it.
Are we thinking that, I think suggesting that the payments must be made, we'll come back with the revised policy, noting that the payment must be made up front. Alternatively, an applicant may apply for a payment plan with the council?
Correct.
Okay. I think it's probably good because, it's potentially a different council down the road, and sometimes we get caught up in what was the thought. And it's possible that will work better for all of us to be that, and it's also possible it won't. But I think if that's our intention, I think it's good to lay it out there that it's a possibility.
Any other questions or additions or changes? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, thank you very much. This is the end of our regular business meeting. Are there any other announcements? Then we are adjourned to the next meeting. Thank you all very much for your time and efforts on all these items.
Isn't that neat? Isn't that this a different